Guerilla cricket. Whoa. Guerilla cricket. Whoa. Guerilla. Take guard, man the barricades, patrol the cover boundary. At last the time has come, this is a cricketing emergency. Hear this call to arms for every cricket revolutionary. Take up your bats and stumps for the test match insurgency. At first they tried to silence us, but we would not be silenced. They threatened us with lies, so we threatened them with violence. Che Guevara, Sangakkara, Joseph Stalin, Douglas Jardine, Robespierre, Darrell Hare, Vladimir Lenin, O'Brien Kevin, guerrilla cricket. It's not about the winning, it's about how many rules you break. Even in cricket commentary, this is the best advice to take. Pick guerrilla cricket, it's the finest choice you'll ever make. There's so much more to cricket than red counters and a slice of cake. At first they tried to sanitize us and clean up our act, but people like it filthy, and we know that for a fact. Fidel Castro, Lenny Pascoe, Carlos the Jackal, Umar Akmal, Mahatma Gandhi, Grant and Andy, Brendan Behan, Austin Ian, guerrilla cricket. Stick with us, cause you know we're not the kind of thing that you see on the TV and the radio. So vive la revolution. First they tried to buy us, but we would not be bought. Okay, we were, but then we ran away, and we will not be caught. Would not give up the ghost when they left us all for dead. They decapitated us, but we just grew another head. Chairman Mao, Jamie Howe, Ho Chi Minh, Asif Din, Václav Havel, Graham Saville, No Surrender, Percy Fender, Che Guevara, Sangakkara, Joseph Stalin, Douglas Jardine, Robespierre, Darrell Hare, Vladimir Lenin, O'Brien Kevin, guerrilla cricket.
You've got to search for the showman inside yourself, Joe Root has urged his team, which is obviously what he was trying to say before the second innings at Lord's, but his players misheard him and thought he said Sloman. Maybe they didn't think there were enough people worth entertaining in St John's Wood, but today we're back at Edgbaston in front of 17,000 fans, and where the Hollies stand has been known to rock. Talking of rocks, New Zealand are without theirs. Kane Williamson, he's been elbowed out and will recuperate to ensure he is pain-free for next week's really big occasion in Southampton. Tom Latham deputises as captain. Good morning, good afternoon, good dawn, good dusk, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Guerilla Cricket. And if England's cricketers remain timid, at least you can expect fearless cricket commentary from us. I'm Guerilla Hendo, Nigel Henderson, and joining me as we go into the second of 7 glorious test matches of the summer is, Tony. Hello, Tony.
Good morning, Hendo. How are you doing? Hello, everybody.
Not too bad. And the Bear. Hello, Bear.
Good morning, peeps. I hope you're all well. First thing I'd like to say, bollocks. And that I got quite annoyed with everyone going, "Oh, we should have gone for the win. We should have gone for the win in that last test." I think the important thing was not to lose. Actually, we had a callow test side with a bunch of people who hadn't really got much experience. A middle order that completely failed, and 75 overs on a sticky dog that with talented bowlers who were actually managing to swing it and to get out with a draw. Not a bad result, actually, I thought. I mean, it's boring to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you to some extent, Bear, but I think there should have been a little bit of, wanting to look as if they might go for it for a little while. And I think people would have forgiven England. They won't forgive them for many other things, but they might have forgiven them if they had fallen that way. What is unforgivable is when someone like Zach Crawley plays the shot that he did in the first innings, and Dan Lawrence plays the kind of shot that he did in the first innings. They would have been chasing 275 if those two could bat with some sort of technique. Anyway, we have toss and team news. We also have the moment of unity going on out there at the moment. Some may consider that to be mildly hypocritical, but let's just do toss and let's do teams, because the toss has been won by England, which means we've got to watch more of Tom Sibley. How much more, we don't yet know. One change for England. One Ollie is replaced by another. Ollie Robinson obviously goes out, and in comes Ollie Stone. It means that Mark Wood is going to be England's crucial number 8. So that's a little bit of a tale, especially with a rather dodgy middle order, the way that it's playing at the moment. New Zealand have sent their B team to try and beat England. We have, as we said, there is no Kane Williamson. Tom Latham steps up as captain, but other changes. Watling has a little bit of a strain. He's out. Southey is rested. Jameson is rested. Santner has a sore finger. And de Grandhomme goes. So the New Zealand team lines up like this: Tom Latham, Dev Conway, Will Young, Ross Taylor, Henry Nicholls. Tom Blundell comes in as keeper. Daryl Mitchell, the all-rounder. Neil Wagner at 8. Matt Henry, Ajaz Patel, left-arm spinner, and Trent Bolt. We've got the man with the small mouth is back, so that's that's one thing to be glad about. England: Dom Sibley, Rory Burns, Zach Crawley, Joe Root, Ollie Pope, Dan Lawrence, James Bracey, Ollie Stone, Mark Wood, Stuart Broad, and Jimmy Anderson. Jimmy Anderson becoming the most capped England player of all time with 162 caps. We won't see him today. We might well see him today at the age of 38 years and 315 days. Tony, what a performance from the man from Burnley.
And the interesting thing is just how he's matured and shaped his craft. He said he felt inadequate, didn't he, in those early tests that he played. And then he went through that sort of phase with a streak in his hair. But he's learnt and shaped his craft as he has got older. Father Time will catch up with him, but he has been able to constantly improve. And
the thing is, though,
that's worth applauding.
If Father Time is going to catch up with him, he's going to have to leap off that position on the top of the Lord's scoreboard first, isn't he? That is the problem. He's got to track him down. He's got to get on the 934 to Edgbaston and see if he can get hold of him. You're absolutely right about his aging well, because there was a stat earlier that showed that he's averaging 23.6 in Test matches since passing 30, and before that he was averaging around about 30. He's played 90 Test matches since he was 30, so it's an extraordinary record that he holds. And long may it continue. Long may it continue. May it continue into the winter as well. Bear, you're trying to get in.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, if you looked at those stats as well, there's a good chance that Stuart Broad will overtake him as soon as within about a year or two of him retiring if he catches on. Broad has played 148 tests. It's only 14 behind Jimmy Anderson, and he's a good 5 years younger. So if he keeps himself fit, we'll be doing the same thing in a couple of years' time about him.
Any slight concern you'd say is? Yeah, sorry, go on, Hendo.
No, after you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you look at who Broad and Anderson at Lords, 3 wickets between them for a fair old chunk of runs. So it's good that England are bringing in the younger guns around them and succession planning. I'm not necessarily one who thinks they always have to be put in harness, Broad and Anderson. I think you have to give the youngsters scope.
I do, but if they're your best 2 bowlers, you've got to bowl them. And the thing to say about that is, it's great that someone like Ollie Robinson actually stood up and took wickets, because if you're constantly relying on Broad and Anderson, they can't do it every game. I mean, that's just a fact. It just doesn't happen every game. So if they have a bad day, someone else has to have a good day. Unfortunately, we have got bowlers who can have good days. Having said that, if they had a bad day last time, I expect them to both come out chundering away and expecting to get lots of wickets.
I thought they bowled a lot better than their figures suggested, to be honest.
Well.
I thought especially Broad in the second innings was extremely unlucky at times. On another day, I mean, I've seen Stuart Broad bowl terribly and get a 6 for. So, we go back to that old adage of maybe these things even themselves out. He bowled well at Lords but wasn't lucky. So anyway, it's a strange one. We're going to have left armour to left-hander to start the morning's play, and it is for once a ground that is pretty full. 17,000 people expected today at Edgbaston. That's the biggest crowd that cricket has seen outside, I guess, India in a while. Anyway, should we jingle up the people involved?
Yes, we're going to. This man's bowling.
How does he speak, or play the horn, or clean his teeth, or even yawn? How does he shout? How does he call? Trent Bolt's mouth is really small.
Bowling 2.
He's got the stride of a champion from Surrey. His mustache is ugly, got a shot finally, and his name is Rory Burns.
And the batsman at the other end is not going to get played now.
No, indeed, because the first ball of the morning, the first ball of this series from Trent Bolt is about to be delivered, and it's a good one. It's close to off stump, a little bit of away swing, but well judged by Rory Burns. He allows it to pass through to Tom Blundell, and there is no run. Talking of Broad and Anderson, you're saying about Broad might go past Anderson, but I've got a feeling they are so entwined, they are seen so much as a partnership now, that actually when they get rid of Anderson, they'll probably get rid of Broad at the same time. I know we won't be happy, but I have a feeling that could happen.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's like put Morecambe and Wise or Simon and Garfunkel. It's very hard to see them with someone else.
exactly.
Wow.
In comes Bolt. Bowls again, a little bit of away movement, and rather tepid and timid in his forward defensive there was Burns. It looked as if he was trying to snatch the bat away at the last moment, so he actually guided it down into the slips, of which there are 3. And also a gully, but there was no run. The crowds are flocking to Edgbaston. There are loads of people still not in the ground, and I guess that's because of protocols. Did they not have to take some sort of evidence of a lateral flow test or something?
Yeah, they'll be doing temperature checking as well, I would imagine, and all those other things. So it will be people will need to allow a lot of extra time to get in, I suspect.
Will people actually get in there before the game is over today? Bolt bowls and beats Burns on the outside edge. And Burns goes down the pitch to have a little look at it. England gone in again without a spinner. What do we think of that? Bear, you must be fuming.
I'm not. I just think, English conditions, it's very hard to shoot. I mean, I was having a chat with Knackle earlier. I mean, the thing is, England are blessed with so many all-rounders that it allows you to play a spinner. We've had
Bowls again defended into the offside, fielded by Gully. Yeah, sorry, go on, Bear.
And we, in the past we've had Moeen Ali, who's a useful batsman, so you can stick him in as a spinner. Having Leach in, how many overs is he going to bowl? Root bowled what, 14 overs in the last game? If he bowls 14,
he did take a wicket in the end, didn't he? He took a wicket in the second innings, Root,
yes.
I believe. I wasn't actually watching at the time, but I remember seeing that later. We're seeing a close-up of a smiling Kane Williamson, who's resting an injured elbow. Bolt in again, bowls to Burns. Burns waves the bat high into the air and allows that to pass through to the wicketkeeper without harm. And England look for their first run.
I don't know if this is so wise of New Zealand to rest so many players. I think players like to play, don't they? Fair enough, they're injured. You've got a big game next week against what is a callow English side. You might as well try and get a victory.
Well, there's a lot of ways of looking at this. I think it was Gary Stead talking, or was it Gary Stead? No, it was Mike Heston, the former New Zealand coach. Onto the back foot goes Burns. Is he going to get a run? He is away between third slip and gully, and I think that's going to run all the way. A quick outfield here at Edgbaston. Latham chases after it, won't get there. England at the end of the first over are 4 for no wicket.
It's Nissan She. It's Nissan She.
People are piling in on social media. Armchair Cricket Podcast, asking whether it's good rotation or is it a bridge too far, unless it's looked upon as confidence that New Zealand has in its ranks. Good question. Rajesh Mahan says there's a partial solar eclipse across the UK just after players started today. Are we going to end up with an immediate interruption for bad light? Jay Grover says morning all. Armchair Cricket Podcast says, a salute to Sir James Anderson and congratulations on becoming the most capped England Test player. Jay Grover wants to know, has Bear just learned the word callow? He used it about 6 times last match, and he has already used it 3 times this morning, because when I saw that tweet I started counting.
Well,
you know what it is, Tony? I used it in an article the other day. I reckon he's
Well, I use lots of words in articles, and he doesn't use all of mine.
Well, I just think it's a pretty good description for England's middle order, that's all. So I started
Matt
using it.
Henry is going to open the bowling. No Tim Southey, of course, 6-wicket man at Lords. Matt Henry, Test career average of only 51, but a much better bowler than that. Sibley just angles this into the offside, thinks about a single, but rejects it, and there is no run. Should we jingle up Dom Sibley?
Let's have the bowler.
All right.
You can never trust a man with 2 first names. Matt Henry.
And the batsman.
Efficient batting. He made huge runs of rumours spread by word of mouth. This guy's really talented. Dominic Sibley. Dominic Sibley.
There you go.
Yes, indeed, Dominic Sibley. This guy is really talented. Well, yes, I suppose to a certain extent he is. We were talking before we came on air. The thing about Dom Sibley is that not only is he very, very slow and not very entertaining. 3 slips gully, backward point, mid-off, mid-on, slightly backward square leg, long leg for Henry. He's into Sibley, who clips this away that with all that talent that he has in his bottom hand. He's going to get at least 2. It's been chased by Neil Wagner, slides and picks up and throws all in one magnificent motion, and they get back for a second. The thing about Sibley is, has there ever been such a slow batsman that is also so ugly to watch? I'm thinking back to my childhood and Geoffrey Boycott. People would say yes, selfish, boring. Oh, good point. But he did have, his technique was nice to watch. Henry into Sibley again. Sibley leaves this one, a slight bit of movement off the pitch, if anything, back into him, but nothing to be worried about. Yes, I suppose Chris Tavray, although that was very much a test match persona that he wore, wasn't it, Tony? I mean, a lot of people would say to you, and I didn't see him play a lot in the county game, that he was quite an expansive batsman for Kent, but he developed this method for England, which was...
I recall a lot of Kent fans defending him.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly as you are there.
Yeah, Henry in again. Ooh, massive swinger, but it starts wide, goes wider. Blundell is pretty much in front of second slip when he finally gathers that. And it is, it has to be signalled a wide on this occasion. England move to 8 for no wicket.
I don't know. Alistair Cook wasn't particularly pleasant to watch.
That's true.
Shiv Chanderpaul.
I was thinking of English batsmen, but yes, Chanderpaul. Although I saw him score this amazing 100 in Guyana on one occasion, outside the off stump. Again, moving away slightly back of a length, left alone by Sibley.
Well, I'm sure if you put Sibley against a shit attack, he'd open up. Clearly, if you're good enough to open up England for a test match, slightly less standard, he probably scores quicker. But as you say, some of them come up with techniques to, make sure they don't get dropped from the England side and get enough runs to stay there. And I think, again, that's part of the reason why England didn't chase. I mean, I don't think we got anyone at the top of the order who was going to start that innings particularly quickly.
And there is ugliness personified. It's a wide-ish Yorker from Henry, and Sibley somehow sort of gets a bit of bat down on it. Didn't really need to be playing at it because it's quite wide. And you couldn't really describe the shot, to be honest. It's a horrible mixture of prodding and pushing and trapping and various things like that. Henry in then to complete the over to Sibley. Sibley comes across his crease ever so slightly. This is better. He defends on the front foot, and that is the end of the second over. England have moved to 8 for no wicket, and we need to get through loads and loads and loads and loads of tweets.
We do. Lots of people on YouTube, actually. Colin says, morning, chaps. Vijaya Mohan Dharmararavam says, keep up the good work. Stephen Kelk says, morning, gents. Investigating Hike says, good morning. Does this test feel even more like a dress rehearsal for the Test Championship final? Yeah, we take your point. Colin says, Bear, then what point do you start playing for a draw? Straight from the start, considering the team. Dan De Castro says, New Zealand has a lot of depth. Half a B-side here, still looking strong. And Colin says he had that spell where he tried to listen to people changing his bowling, and then he realised he actually knew better. I think that might be around about Jimmy Anderson,
Yeah.
if I recall.
No, I don't.
Morning all, says Warren.
Good morning.
I'll hold it for now because
Trent Bolt is coming in to bowl to Burns, and Burns again hinting at trying to take the bat away from it, but not actually managing to, and ends up playing it down into the gully. And there is no run. There is swing, but there's not a huge amount of swing. It's not particularly late. We see Ashley Giles talking to Dennis Amiss, who I believe has got an autobiography out. I don't think he's trying to sell him his autobiography at the moment, but those are two stalwarts of Warwickshire cricket, the Wheelie Bin and Dennis Amiss. Very much an opener of my generation. Here comes Bolt again into Burns. Once more, a little bit of movement away. Good length delivery. Burns leaves it. I would come back to you, Bear, on the question of whether England should have chased. We've kind of been told that we've got this massively exciting middle order of Dan Lawrence, Zach Crawley and Ollie Pope, and they've all shown at times a degree of ability, more than a degree of ability. And you would think with a sort of positive middle order like that in normal circumstances they would go after a total like that. And I think it said something about the mood in the England camp, about a slight anxiety, a slight lack of confidence, that they didn't. Maybe it was the shots that those particular players played in the first innings that made Joe Root nervous. I don't know.
Quite possibly. Plus, had a particularly long tail as well, and I mean, this is it. If you had Butler and Stokes in the middle order, you'd have probably said they would have gone for it. But it does come down to, if Sibley or Burns don't get out, then the rate is going to be slow until one of those gets out. Do you want one of them to throw a wicket or change their style to get going?
Well, I mean, ideally, you want to see your better stroke players out there for longer, don't you? But this is the problem. This is the problem that Zach Crawley has. That, I mean, it doesn't matter how good he looks, and he does at times looks really good. If he's not out there long enough to score any runs, what use is he really?
Well, there is that.
Interesting, in fact, it was a letter in this month's Cricketer from Ted Dexter, who was said he was absolutely horrified to see Ollie Pope on the front cover break off as Bolt is in, back of a length, and Burns places down right by his feet. Would have been a little bit worried that it might spin back onto his stumps just for a moment, but fortunately it doesn't. He was horrified to see the picture that they'd chosen for the previous month's issue was Ollie Pope driving on one knee, and he was adamant that you cannot drive off one knee. And he was very critical of England's technical abilities. The only player that he liked amongst the England middle order was Joe Root, but Bolton again defended towards gully. There is no run. The only one that he had any time for, really, at the top of the England order was Zach Crawley. And yet Zach Crawley is out for two in both innings, wasn't he, at Lord's?
Yes.
So there's a lot of arguments about technique. I mean, coaches get criticised, don't they, for trying to change players if they have a slightly odd technique. But I mean, if you are a coach and you're presented for the first time with Dominic Sibley or Rory Burns, you think, oh my goodness me, he'd be such a good player if I could just do this to him. This one comes back into Rory Burns and hits him high up on the thigh pad, just cramping him for room completely. And there is no run. You can understand why coaches would look to change that, because if they find someone who's doing quite well with a very odd technique, and one that would defy everything you know about technique. You can understand the sort of the pressures change them, but so, as we've seen so often, that doesn't work. In comes Bolt again, full up into the toes of Burns, who rather neatly clips this away down to long leg, and they get through for a single. He will keep the strike. England are 9 for none. Tweets.
I would just say, first of all, on YouTube, Joshua Letchford says, opening batsmen are not Miss America, and they're not Usain Bolt. How relevant, it'd be an interesting mix of, how relevant is speed and looks to their job? I think that's a question for you there, Hendo.
No, I totally agree with you. I'm just saying that I think there's a double difficulty with Sibley, because he's slow and he's ugly. If he was slow and pretty, he would get away with it. And I think he
Describe
gets
most of us. To be fair.
and he gets more criticism because he's slow and ugly. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just, making the point. Anyway, Burns is going to take guard for the first time to Matt Henry.
But England have openly said since last summer. I mean, the whole point is that they want to stick big runs on the board in the first innings, and they're having a slow and deliberate opener. It's kind of part of their plan on that. And Sibley fits the bill. I know it's ugly and nasty to watch, but he did get a 60 in the second innings when you wanted him to chase an innings, but he's never going to do that. And I'm quite happy with that, really. I don't, it does frustrate me at times.
Henry bowls full ball. Burns comes forward, defends towards extra cover.
But it is a 5-day game,
Yeah, and I made the point in my article on that night that there was all this criticism for Sibley, but Root made it pretty clear in his chat to Sky almost immediately afterwards that the ploy had always been to get a draw, and so he had been sent out presumably to play his natural game, and that's what he did.
Yeah,
and he did okay. Henry in again, bowls to Burns, hits him on the pad, thinking about an appeal, then thinking perhaps it's a little bit high, probably judging that correctly so he doesn't overburden the umpire, and there is no run.
Decent movement in the air. Leah says, hello everyone, and hysteric hyperbole is always more exciting than common sense, Bear. Has the cesspool that is the English tabloids taught you nothing?
Well, absolutely.
A lovely figure from Dr. Dan, an impression of Edgbaston 3/4 full.
Okay.
Sort of landscape style.
Henry in again, bowls to Burns. Burns drops onto the front foot. Burns, of course, he got a century in the England first innings. That's played to extra cover.
Can you imagine?
There is no run.
Can you imagine the state of the fans by the end of this day? First day back, full crowd. It's going to be some very lagered up people by the end of the day.
Did I see that there's some special app they're using at Edgbaston where you can go on and you can find out where there's the smallest queue for lager is, basically.
Oh my god.
You might have to walk around the ground to find it. Anyway, here's Henry again, bowls to Burns. Good bowling. Just turned into the onside by Burns, and he and Sibley did a little sort of shall we shan't we dance and ultimately decided against it, which I think was probably the right decision. So England remain on 9 for no wicket. Burns has 5, Sibley has 2. Burns has had the majority of the strikes so far this morning. If you're just joining us, I've nearly forgotten the GPL. I'll come back to that in a moment.
God, yeah.
Just joining us, England won the toss, batted, 6 changes in the New Zealand side, 1 change in the England side. Here is Henry again, bowls coming in to Burns, good length delivery, probing his stumps at the moment, turned into the onside. There is no run. GPL is open. The GPL is the Guerilla Prediction League, the game that you can play every single day on Guerilla Cricket. Go to guerillacricket.com/competition. By lunch, estimate how many runs you think will be scored in the day, and pay us £1 for every guess. You can have as many as you want. If you get it on the nose, you get all the money that's in the pot. What's in the pot, Bear? After this ball, down the leg side. I'm not sure whether he got bad on that or it sprung off the thigh pad. It's gone quite fine. Man at long leg is Trent Bolt. He's had a run away round to get that, and Illingworth, who's umpiring, I think it is. They've got 2 leg buys. England 11 for no wicket. How much is in the GPL pot?
The pot is only £20 because we've had to put it up because we had a winner at the end of the last game. We had Mark Selleck won, but Mark Selleck's bloody PayPal account doesn't accept money. I had to refund him 20 quid. If you're listening, Mark, I did send you an email saying he's won it twice, and the last 2 times I tried to send him the money, his PayPal account will not accept cash, and I have no idea.
Now those are the kind of people. Those are the kind of people
winners who don't want the money. Yep.
Winners don't want the money. Absolutely right.
But I feel rude if I don't pay them the money. They won it legitimately, and I just want to pay him his money so I don't feel bad. But he's just refusing to respond to me. So if he wants us to keep the money, just let us know. But I would rather we do the right thing and send it to him.
I think he won £47, wasn't it?
£77.
Oh, £77. Well, there you go. For a £1 stake. Can you say better than that? Where else can you go, put £1 down and get £77 back? Not many places. 2 slips of the gully. Man comes into a mid-wicket, shortish mid-wicket for Sibley, hoping that he might shovel with that bottom hand into that area. This is outside the off stump, however, and he leaves it alone. I saw someone tweeting earlier about whether Dominic Sibley had spilled his breakfast down his England jersey. I'm guessing he must have just been diving around in the field during the warm-ups. It's a poor show, to be frank, coming out with a dirty jumper on the first day of a test match. But I guess, maybe the laundry facilities are limited at Edgbaston.
Maybe he can't get round to his mum's.
Yes, exactly. Precisely. Or his dad's, perhaps.
Yeah.
Bolt, none for 5, into his third over, racing in. Bowls to Sibley, full ball. He just pushes forward towards extra cover, and there is no.
Isn't he known for being rather messy? Was it Sibley who's got something of a reputation as being a messy eater anyway? I seem to recall reading something about that in an interview with his former flatmates.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dribbler.
A dribbler? I don't know. He didn't.
A dribbler. Well, yes.
He probably takes all day to eat, half a slice of sausage with his breakfast,
Yeah, he's probably got a very, very delicate digestion, so he has to sort of, take it easy. Not sure you should be eating sausages during the day as a cricketer, but
well, you can't get them in Northern Ireland.
Never put Sterlo off.
It's true. Nicely flicked by Sibley. There is a man at backward square leg. That's another ploy of New Zealand's. They're trying to test him with that bottom hand that he loves to use so much. He's going to get a single to long leg. He goes to 3. England to 12 for no wicket.
Few hellos. Yeah, I'm going to do a few quick hellos to our friends on Crick Tracker India. Ranji Guru Khan, Ritesh Anand, Manoj Bise, Amananditya, Karan Sharma, and Buradin Birawandala. Hello to all of you. Delighted you're with us. Greetings, says Farong from Dhaka. He's not certain what to expect from this test. Not as it's not part of the ICC World Championship. But he thinks, will the Black Caps be hoping to lift the Test Championship next month, he asks.
They will indeed. Onto the front foot comes Burns. Steers it into the offside. There's a little bit of a gap. He's going to get himself a single. England move to 13 for no wicket. In the 5th over of the morning. Sibley has 3. Burns now has 6. Ajaz Patel is the spinner who's in for New Zealand in the absence of Mitchell Santner, who was bowling with a cut spinning finger, I understand. A very bloody one on the final day. So it's like for like, left arm spinner. He's come into the New Zealand team.
Well, I was going to ask about, has anyone seen Ajaz Patel bowl? I mean, what's his name? Who's the commentator? His name's gone out of my head for a minute. A tall
Simon
one.
Dool?
Yeah, Simon Dool was saying he's the best spinner they've got, and therefore he should have been playing in the last test instead of Santner.
Defended to short mid wicket, and there is no run.
He was the highest wicket taker in their first class cricket 3 years in a row before he got selected.
Oh wow!
So he can clearly bowl a bit.
Well, we look forward to seeing him at some point today. Hopefully, from an England perspective, that will mean they've seen off the seamers for a time being. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see another spinner. I thought Mitchell Santner actually bowled reasonably well. Flicked away through mid-wicket. You can have all those people on the leg side, but when you've got the bottom hand of a Sibley, he can work it through them, and he has right to the edge. Conway has chased it. They're going to come back for an easy 3. That was a nicely timed stroke. At the end of the 5th over the morning, England have moved to 16 for no wicket. Burns has 6, and Sibley has 6.
Dan News it was. He was asking about, does he have breakfast down his jumper? Dan Keevy says, Berta Dipanar was an ugly batsman, but when he got in, he stayed in, I suppose. Brother Seamus says, I thought the same thing, almost like he spilled or coffee or had a yak. Adrian Lowe says, change of plan today, watching you on YouTube. I am the lucky one. Cheers, chimps. Keep up the great work. We're delighted to, Adrian. Thank you for being with us.
Indeed.
Ted Dexter still alive, says Ravi. Yes, he is.
Well, unless someone wrote that, or was he was channeling Ted Dexter. There were some interesting articles. I keep saying this. There were interesting letters in the Cricketer this month. There was one from Ted Dexter, and there was one from Sunil Gavaskar, and I thought, hello, this is interesting. Your quality of letter writers is growing. Anyway, here comes Henry. Bowls widely off stump, and Sibley has nothing to do with it. Ajaz Patel is now 32, was born in Mumbai before moving to New Zealand as an 8-year-old. But I do believe that his dad would take sort of New Zealand youth teams over to India to play in club cricket in India, so that they got experience of conditions over there, which is interesting too.
And he took a 5 on his debut in Abu Dhabi against Pakistan. Took 5 for 59.
here is Henry again. Short ball, first one of the morning, really, and Sibley sways out of that with some comfort. And through to Blundell it goes. I suppose the last time we saw Matt Henry, what we remember Matt Henry for, really, was that wonderful spell at the beginning of the World Cup semi-final against India, wasn't it? Bowled really well, that, and put New Zealand on the way to the final, getting important wickets at the top. Anyway, he's operating to Dom Sibley at the moment, and he's in again just outside the off stump. Good length delivery. Forward comes Sibley, defends it to extra cover, and again there is no run. How far behind are we on the tweets, Tony?
10 minutes, I can catch up. Ravi Nair wants to know, please tell us about the state of Sibley's jumper. Has he let down his mother, his country, and his bat? Lily Franklin replied, he's not only let down his own mother, but mine as well. She's not particularly impressed about Dom's jumper there.
Full outside the off stump again. You always feel drivable, but at the moment Sibley is just defending, and the ball runs back to the bowler. There is no run. I've just spotted the first none of the day. First none of the day has been spotted. First Lord Admiral Nelson has been spotted. I'm sure there are all sorts of other people around. Did you read? I mean, in fact, you should have been reading our excerpts from cricket books of late, which we've been featuring on our website, and they've all made for fantastic reading. Henry in again, bowls slightly shorter. Sibley gets right in behind it.
They are indeed.
But did you read the one? I think it was from the guy talking about club cricket and how he found himself on blast finals day at Edgbaston. As if you find yourself, but he found himself sitting next to a man dressed as a fox, and he was very polite. He said, is my tail in the way? Is my tail blocking your view? And then he got chased by a bunch of people dressed up as hunters. Anyway, this is outside the stump. It does move back, but it was wide enough that Sibley could leave it. That is a maiden from Henry. England remain 16 for no wickets. Yeah, I would say to you, please go and have a look at our website. We've been putting some brilliant articles on there, and excerpts from these books have been fantastic. The one that we're featuring this week is a story about Ireland's, I suppose, adventure from associate member to Test match at Lord's.
TT.
And fascinating stuff. Yeah, Dave Townsend has written that. And there will be another excerpt of that up later. So
I rather like the idea, Hendo, of your none of the day. Sort of rather disappointing Saturday night sports TV, I suspect, but there we go.
Well, talking of nuns of the day, I do remember many years ago when I was at college, I dressed up as a nun for a fancy dress party, and yet there was another nun there, and my friend was running around to the other nun saying, my nun's better than your nun.
Anyway,
did you have a nun fight?
Hey, boom, 16 for no wicket. Bolt is in again, bowls outside the off-stump, swinging away, but no danger to Burns, who leaves it alone and then just scratches away at his crease, as he is wont to do. More tweets.
Yeah, it's interesting you should mention Ireland there, actually. Pirate Badshah floating in rum pops up as if by magic, on cue. I don't know why you're all complaining about Sibley. Ireland would kill for a solid rock at the top of the order in all formats.
I don't think we are complaining about Sibley. It's just I was trying to
he's ugly,
work
he's slow.
out why he's so
ugly, he's slow, and he's got food down his jumper. I mean,
yeah. What else do you want? I mean, that just clinches the case, doesn't it? Again, outside the off stump, left alone by the left-handed Rory Burns. We'd have cried out for a Sibley, but Sibley's got to be more consistent in what he does. I mean, if you look at his record in India, I mean, no one had a great record in India, but also wasn't great in Sri Lanka. He got that 80, didn't he, on the pitch that was quite decent in Chennai to start with, and then after that he was completely at sea, as were most.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think it's very difficult to judge people on that India series.
Bolt again, and same result. Burns just lifts his bat out of the way, it swings away, and it ends up in the hands of Tom Blundell, who is deputising for BJ Watling. BJ Watling's retiring at the end of this test series, not this series, but this little journey to England, this tour to England after the World Test Championship. So you'd think he would have wanted to be out there today, wouldn't he, really? There aren't too many more test matches to be played in his career, and he might have liked to sneak one more in. Better ball from Bolt, so that doesn't swing away, it just comes straight on towards Burns.
It's an injury, isn't it? It's a stiffness of something or other that he's not recovered from, so they say. If I can squeeze it. Sorry, go on.
Go on. No, go on.
I was going to. Colin says, dressed up as Ali G and sculling beers before 12. I reckon we found an odds-on contender for the latter of the day to be ejected fan. Later in the day, fan ejection. Yes, that's what I was going.
2 balls, and then we'll have a change. Short one this time. Ends up going down the leg side. Burns just almost leans into it to duck, and it causes no harm. I think most of those outside Edgbaston have now got in. Half an hour gone, so they've missed a bit of Sibley. They'll be really cross that they didn't get there on time. I'm sorry, I'm not taking the piss. I mean, he's a very important batsman at this stage for England in the way that England are going, but we all know what his limitations are. It's as simple as that. In comes Bolt again, outside the stump, left alone by Burns. It's time for a change. After the first half an hour, England, having won the toss and elected to bat, are 16 for no wickets. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
The best things in life are free. Just like Guerilla commentary, we need money. That's what I want. Guerilla Cricket. We need money. I don't like the BBC. I prefer Guerilla commentary. I want money.
Yes, we do want money. Good morning and welcome to Guerilla Cricket's coverage of the second test of England's 2-match series against New Zealand. England won the toss and elected to bat at Edgbaston's. Matt Henry comes in outside off stump from the Birmingham end, left alone by Warwickshire's Dominic Sibley through to the keeper, and there is no run. I am Knuckle M. Pandey, and we've got changes here and changes in the New Zealand team. I'll go through those changes if you're just joining us, but I should first welcome Nestle Boy in a fantastic shirt.
Thank you.
And not Fred Titmus in a shirt.
Good morning.
England 16-4-1. In comes Henry, 3 slips away. A little bit of movement into Dom Sibley, who blocks to point, and there is no run. Yes, those changes. One change for England. Ollie for Ollie. Ollie with an IE Robinson out. Ollie with a Y Stone in. The fast bowler playing at his home ground. 6 changes for New Zealand, 3 enforced through injury, with Kane Williamson's elbow, BJ Watling's back, and Mitchell Santner's spinning finger ruling them out. So in come Will Young, who'll bat at number 3 as break off as Henry comes into Sibley. Short ball into the ribs. Sibley trying to work it to leg, is hit on the body, and there is no run. Will Young, who has been batting very well for Durham, comes in. Tom Blundell, who was dropped for Devon Conway, who made that double 100, in as wicketkeeper, standing in for the 4th time as BJ Watling's replacement. Tom Latham is captaining for the 3rd time as New Zealand stand in, and Ajaz Patel comes in as the replacement spinner for Mitchell Santner. In comes Henry, another replacement, is in tight to off stump, blocked by Sibley to mid wicket. There is no run. The other 3 changes are some combination of rotation and keeping players fresh. Colin de Grandhomme, who his first test back, the first test at Lords was his first test back from ankle surgery, so they're just easing him back in, thinking that 3 tests back to back was pushing it. So he comes out, and in comes Daryl Mitchell. Trent Bolt swaps back in for Tim Southey, and Matt Henry gives Carl Jameson a rest, and he's opening the bowling alongside Bolt. In comes the tall right arm of Matt Henry. That's a very good delivery. Perfect length on off stump. A little bit of movement past the outside edge. Sibley, knowing his limitations and knowing his game to his credit, did not follow it, but is definitely beaten on the outside edge through to Blundell, and there is no run. Fred, early signs are that this pitch has a little bit more pace and carry than the Lords pitch did.
Well, I think most pitches do, to be honest. The Lord's pitch was pretty dead. Although, to be fair, I didn't watch the last 2 days. And by all accounts, I didn't miss much.
Henry in bowling from mid-crease. A good lead by Sibley, left on length, which is something that you couldn't really do too much at Lords. It did come in, but Sibley is a good judge of his off-stump through to the keeper, Blundell, and there is no run. A maiden from Matt Henry. England, having won the toss and elected to bat after 8 overs, are 16 for none. Nesters, socials.
YouTube. Khan Tenvir sends us a love heart with a white cross in the middle. Looks like something the Red Cross. But we're okay at the moment, Khan. We're fine. We don't need the Red Cross. Hombre Nuevo sends pictures of his baby grows that he's bought from the Guerilla website. So they look wonderful. Have a look at that. And he also says he's a bit nervous, waiting for the filling of those baby grows. Muttley says, woof, morning primates, just tuned in, hearing I could get a £1 steak. I realise you're talking GPL and the same £1 steak.
I wouldn't
Love
trust
and
a
sausages.
I wouldn't trust a £1 cut of beef.
No. Spangley Size with us, Watto chaps. I'll break off.
In comes Trent Bolt, continuing back into the New Zealand team earlier than expected after the regulations change, and he was able to train immediately on opponent arriving in the UK. Starts with one that swings away from Rory Burns. I think he's bowled every ball to Rory Burns. Burns blocks to cover, and there is no run.
Just to finish Spangley Size, he's relying on you in England to cheer me up. I'm feeling grumpy due to the incompetence of bicycle delivery people. Well, Spangley, what bike you getting, mate? What is it? Carbon fibre?
There's a number of ways to read that.
Bolt in from the pavilion end, good delivery, swinging past the outside edge. Burns, though, again, as Sibley did in the last over, not following it, having realised he was beaten on the outside edge. Through to the keeper it goes. There is no run. Trent Bolt has bowled the Trent Bolt delivery pretty much every ball, Fred, swinging away from the left-hander.
Yeah, it's what he does. I'm trying to remember the last time team made 6 changes from one test to the next, and I'm struggling.
It's the kind of thing that would be look-upable by someone other than me. I'm sure Andrew Sampson will be all over this at some point today. Full delivery, very full, and clipped by Burns. Well fielded by Will Young, diving at mid-wicket, and there is no run. Burns will be a bit annoyed there. He missed out on a leg stump half volley. Obviously,
yes and no. Bolt wants him to play that shot against the swing, because if a batsman plays that and he times it, he's going to do it to one perhaps which is not quite there, or swings a little bit more. Bolt is not unhappy to see people playing those balls into the leg side.
No, indeed. Burns did time it pretty well, though. But it was well fielded. New Zealand, obviously, a world-class fielding team. A little wider in the crease, perhaps. Bolt. Burns shuffles across and pushes into the offside. There is no run. It's been tight this morning from New Zealand, but no alarms as yet for England. Burns and Sibley look very comfortable in what they're doing. I think the criticism of Dominic Sibley is way, way off the mark. He has built his first-class career on being patient and waiting for bowlers to bowl to him and tiring bowlers out. This is what England claimed they wanted for all those Bayliss years. Now you've got one. As Bolt comes in, 3 slips. Awaits an appeal as Burns is beaten on the outside edge. Trent Bolt does the finger guns towards Richard Kettleborough as though threatening to laser him in the chest if the ball is... if the appeal is turned down. It is turned down, and I think is too high. Tom Latham, the standing captain, is not interested.
Yeah, I think he got quite far forward, and I think it was well too high, and well, it wasn't that far forward, but pretty much going over the stumps.
Hit him on the back thigh pad. Yeah, you see that? See what I'm talking about? Trent Bolt, the finger guns. I've not seen that before.
They'll have to ban that soon.
Last ball of Trent Bolt's 5th over, the 9th of the innings, is well wide of off stump, and Burns is having nothing at all to do with that. Blundell takes in front in the first slip. 2 maidens in a row for New Zealand. In fact, more than that. In fact, I think 4 maidens in a row, but not as threatening quite as that makes it sound. England 16 for none.
Scott McGregor has joined us from Albany, Auckland in New Zealand. He loves our commentary. Well, welcome aboard, Scotty. Brian Ellis says, may the best team win. I like England and I'm a Kiwi supporter. Madan Mohan is bringing up the fact that Guerilla was also very slow, along with other slowness that we've been talking about. Jay Grover, Butcher's Works has gone weird. A window I've never seen open for 8 years has been propped ajar with a film canister. Shit's going down somehow.
On the matter
Anyone?
The after this ball.
Henry in full delivery. Sibley pushes straight of the man at wideish mid on. Neil Wagner is chasing that for all his worth, and his all that sprint work coming in handy. Snags it with the dive before it reaches the mid on fence, and they come through for 3 runs. So that run of 4 maidens in a row is broken. Sibley moves to 9, England 19 for none.
It's one of these constant refrains. You know, if you have a batsman who's going too slow, say, oh, we need somebody quicker at the top of the order. You know, Compton's too slow, and Hamid, whoever it is. And then you come somebody who plays a few shots and gets out, caught and slip, and you say, why can't he bat like a bloody opener? I mean, it's one of those things which is a constant refrain. People always seem to want the opposite of what they've got.
Well, I mean, there are some people who like their openers or batters a certain way. There are also some people who just like complaining.
Hi, Hendo.
Those are the words of not Fred Titmus. Rory Burns on 6 off 31 for all of talking about. Sibley has scored 50% more runs in significantly fewer balls than Rory Burns, but obviously it doesn't really matter at this stage. Burns blocked back to the bowler, there is no run. The one thing, and this is a little iteration, and it's the sort of thing that you build, you make little improvements as you go in your career as a Test cricketer. I think Sibley does miss out on singles. I think that working good or sort of decent deliveries for singles is something that will help him. And
do you think he goes too far the other way? I'll break off.
This is blocked on the back foot by Burns into the onside, and there is no run. I don't know. A lot of cricketers will, when they come into Test cricket and they make that step up, will play slightly within themselves because it's a harder challenge. The bowlers are better, often faster, or the equivalent for bowlers. You revert to the thing that you do well, which is, the reason that's in theory got you picked in the first place. And, players evolve over the course of their career and get better, or they get found out quite quickly. As Henry is angling this across Rory Burns. That's a kind of delivery that could potentially have been worked for a single. It's not a big thing, but it's just a little matter to note. We're seeing this LBW appeal from the last over, and not only was it too high, there was an inside edge, so it didn't have a great deal going for it. Bowled with a sort of wobble seam by Trent Bolt to trying to get the ball to just carry on or introduce a little bit of natural variation. Henry in full delivery, defensively clipped by Burns to mid-wicket, short mid-wicket, catching. There is no run.
I've not got a problem with Sibley per se. It just sometimes can depend on the situation in the match. If someone's going too slow, that's all.
Yeah, I don't think we've had a situation where Sibley has in any way cost England.
No.
As someone who commentated through every single ball of that day 5, it would have been nice from an entertainment point of view to see England go for it, but I can completely understand why they didn't. As Henry is in. Last ball of the over, finally concedes a run as Burns clips this past square leg. Ajaz Patel in as the left arm spinner in replacing Mitchell Santner. Fields, they come through for 2 runs. England 21 for none after 10 overs, having won the toss and elected to bat.
Phil Withall says, love to see crowds back at the Test. However, can we just fuck off the fancy dress people? It's like a 50-year-old man in a nightclub. I'm old, tired and irritable.
May I point the honourable members to my previous comment about some people like complaining?
Colin says people that just like to complain. No, I will not believe that. Leah says, on the other hand, I find it easy to judge Axar Patel an exciting talent based on that India tour bear. Mrs. Luigi Magpie's with us, tuning in. 3:30 a.m. The Cat sends their thanks for the early breakfast. They love time difference games. And Jay Grover says my shirt is mint, and I've actually offered it to him if he sends me his address. Shall I sign it?
I think we can auction this probably. You're getting some money out of this. Change of bowling at the pavilion end. 5 overs for Trent Bolt, getting some swing in that time. 5 overs, 2 maidens, none for 10, and in comes the human trebuchet.
That's Neil Wagner. He's my boss. And when he takes 5 wickets in an over, it was moida.
I think one of only 2 players to take 5 wickets in a first-class over. He starts with a friendly delivery on the pads of Dom Sibley, works it round the corner to Henry at long leg for a single. I wonder, on a slightly quicker pitch, if Wagner might go to the to what we know as Wagner's modus operandi. He bowls over 50% of his deliveries are short balls. 2/3 of his wickets are from short balls. But in the second innings at Lords, he basically bowled like a swing bowler. Bowled well like a swing bowler, but it was something we haven't seen from Wagner for a few years.
Well, you'd expect in England them to want him to try and get as much, certainly with a new ball, to pitch it up and get as much swing as there is, because he is capable of doing that, and that makes sense as far as the match situation is concerned, and also they're looking forward inevitably to the next game, which they consider more important, obviously, because they've rested three people from this game. So they need him to try and make the most of the conditions.
Yeah,
I think certainly at the moment that's done by pitching the ball up.
Well, certainly at this stage. I mean, the odd short ball, and he bowls very good short balls. As Richard Kettleborough the umpire gets annoyed with someone standing behind what appears to be one of those tombola things that they use for lottery game shows in front of the sight screen. I've no idea what it is or what it's doing there, or why a man in a flowery shirt is needed to attend to it. Man in the flowery shirt is now trying to duck. There's a game of musical chairs going on with the stewards, and there's not enough chairs. I don't know what's happening. But anyway, cricket is happening as Wagner is in very full, left alone through to the keeper. There is no run.
There's almost as much happening off the pitch as on it, which is quite often the case at Edgbaston.
Some people just like to complain.
No, hey. Well, Mogg says Test cricket is boring. When does the T20 series start?
Yeah,
well, Test cricket says Mogg is boring, so swings and roundabouts, mate.
I think we can safely assume that wasn't a serious comment. Joking the joke. As Wagner in very full, a little bit of swing again through to Tom Blundell behind the stumps, and there is no run. Look, in terms of the World Test Championship final is more important than this match, and also, you have to look at it as a block. 3 Test matches back to back is a lot. That's kind of silly, to be honest, if we're thinking about that from a broader point of view. And you can see why. You bring a squad, you back your bowlers to help you win a Test match. Otherwise, you presumably wouldn't have taken them. And as Wagner is in, left alone through to the keeper, there is no run. And you look at the changes. Trent Boult, very, very good bowler. Very fine bowler, New Zealand's best, probably, along with Southey. Ajaz Patel, certainly the best pure spinner in New Zealand. He's not as good a batter as Mitchell Santner. De Grandom, they don't want him playing 3 tests in a row, just coming off ankle surgery. Daryl Mitchell, probably a better batter. And those are the sort of elective changes, and the other 3 are injuries. So,
yeah, and even with the injuries, it's possible that they're precautionary rather than keeping them out of the game had it been a decider.
Wagner in full and blocked by Burns into the offside. There is no run. Yeah,
well, it is a decider, but I mean, had there not been another game next week, it's quite possible. I don't know the extent of, say, Watling's injury, but they may have.
Well, I think
he wanted to err on the side of caution.
I think Williamson's elbow. Yes, that's he's taken an injection to get through the game next week. Now, maybe he would have. He would have, done something to get through this game, maybe. Watling pulled up sore in the morning of the Test match. He was supposed to be playing this Test match. As Wagner is in. Last ball of his first over is a good delivery. A little bit too short, though, and Burns, although he was beaten on the outside edge, didn't really have to play too much of a shot at it. Through to the keeper, there is no run. Burns on 8 off 41. Doesn't look all that bothered about it, but he is on 8 off 41. Dom Sibley on 10 off 26. 11 overs gone, New Zealand 22. 4-9. So Watling, I think, is an injury that maybe he'd have pushed it harder, but wicket keeping with a sore back, it's not really a good idea. And we saw Mitchell Santner's finger was bleeding through that last Test match.
Do we know whether blood is one of the permitted substances you're allowed to apply to the ball?
Well, COVID's not a blood-borne illness, so I don't know. I don't really know what difference it would make, to be honest. Someone study it. Scientists, get on it. Nestlers.
Jay says on the cheap food front, there was a pub on the Sheffield border that offered steak, chips and a drink for $4.99, but it backed on to 2 worrying, desolate farms.
Henry continuing from the city end, or the Birmingham end, through to the keeper as Sibley plays inside the line of a foolish delivery. There is no run. Matt Henry. Henry was talking about it. He is. You watch him in one-day cricket. You watch him in that incredible season he had for Kent in 2018. He is clearly a very good bowler, but his Test record is poor. It really is. It is a curious one. There's three slips in the gully await as Henry comes in. Full on the pad. Sibley likes it there. Turns it backward of square. Single down to Wagner at long leg. Moves to 11. It is odd, Fred, that a bowler so evidently or seemingly good and classy and who can Bolt at pace, has such a bad record as Matt Henry in Test cricket. He averages over 50 with the ball.
Well, performances or potential rather is one thing, but cricket is a game of numbers on the page. You can look as good as you like in the nets or even in the game, but if you don't take the wickets or score the runs, you can use all the excuses in the world. But sometimes, over the short period, over a short term, numbers can be deceiving. But as time goes on and you're not getting the results that you think the talent deserves, then maybe you're just not good enough. You're talking about New Zealand, which has always struggled for depth, being a very small country and have a small number of cricketers. So they are obviously going to keep plugging with him. I doubt there's 5 players, lining up to take his position. But you do have to turn in the performances.
Henry is in. Tall man, strongly built, left alone through to the keeper. There is no run by Rory Burns back on strike. He has a very good first-class record. He has a very good one-day international record. He's done well in England with Kent. But you're right. This is his 14th Test match. He's averaging over 50, and I've got the stat here. He's gone wicketless in a third of his Test innings.
And in a successful team as well. It's not like they're being carted all around the park and everyone's struggling.
No, I mean, that's why he's not first choice anymore. Full delivery and a little bit of swing. Burns trying to drive through the offside, through mid-off, inside edges along the ground to mid-wicket. There is no run. The emergence of Wagner and the emergence of Jameson. Matt Henry was out of the team basically when Wagner started to get a regular gig. And he's probably 5th choice now. New Zealand seamer is Matt Henry, and he hasn't done enough to be higher up the pecking order. Through to the keeper, there is no run.
I think he's 30, or he's around 30 years old.
29.
By this stage of the career, you need to have. Look, Southey and Bolton. Southey's not going to go on forever. He's been playing Test cricket for 13 or 14 years, and he's been lucky to avoid serious injury for that time. But you can't keep going on forever. The question is whether you look to a guy who's about to be 30 to replace him or not, and probably not.
Angled across Rory Burns, who lays bat on ball but can't beat the packed offside ring. Fielded at the backward point, there is no run. Rory Burns' open air net continues. He's on 8 off 45. Dominic Sibley is 11 off 28. England 23 for none after 12. I'm only saying the ball's faced really for completeness' sake. There's no real editorialising going on. It's the first morning of a Test match. Nestlers.
Jeff Thomas says, on a positive note, whenever Dom Sibley is batting for England, I'm less inclined to refer to myself as not to bat Jeff Thomas. Jack Bennett has joined us. He's late to the party. Have I missed anything? Not really, Jack. Not really, not yet. Joe Grover says, why don't we just play with passion? Getting my inner Euro Radio 5 Live phone-ins out there now.
That's passion spelt P-A-S-H-U-N.
Yeah. That starts soon, doesn't it?
A man not lacking in passion, Neil Wagner. Grimaces in outside off stump. A little bit of swing into the right-handed Dom Sibley, who pushes to point, and there is no run. And, that is a ball that maybe that you would hope as he goes through his career he'll be able to manipulate into a gap somewhere and pick up an easy single. It's not easy, but it is something that an iteration that could help him.
Obviously, he can't get into the heads of anyone, but do you think he doesn't think about the single enough? Is that what you're saying? That he just don't get out?
I think there is an element of technique to it, and knowing the method by which to do that in a risk-free manner. This is a very full, very floaty delivery, trying to tempt Dominic Sibley, which is rather like trying to tempt a wall through to the keeper, and there is no run. Daryl Mitchell, not that Daryl Mitchell, is warming up.
I've just seen the England scorecard on screen, and I'm not sure if Gary's on today, but I wonder his opinion on Mark Wood being down at number 8 in an England Test team. That is a poorer tale as I think I've seen for many a year.
This is left alone through to the keeper, and there is no run. Yes, someone wrote an article in the week about the Mullally Caddick Tufnell Giddens.
Yeah, I think they only did it once, or possibly 2
It was in that series. It was in the series against New Zealand in 1999. Look, it's not that bad. Mark Wood is a perfectly decent 9 or 10. can flash the bat.
You'd want your number 8 to have a decent chance of hitting a Test 70. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, England have picked what they think are their 4 best bowlers for this game, and then said to the batters do the work. This is a full delivery, and Sibley blocks into the offside, and there is no run. It's quite old-fashioned in a way, solid openers and a slightly more stroke-making middle order, and then pick your best bowlers and don't worry too much about the lower order runs. But England don't have Ben Stokes or Sam Curran or Chris Wokes available to them.
Well, they do have Chris Wokes available to him. They just decided not to pick him.
Well, he's not in the squad, is what I'm saying. So, needs must, I suppose, as Wagner is in. Very full delivery. Sibley really closes the face on that. I think he was trying to work that square of mid-wicket, but ended up going straight to mid-wicket. There is no run. Even Dom Sibley looked at his bat there, and as though to say, what did you do to his bat? There is no run.
But Collins says, in fairness to Sibley, we don't know what gameplay he's been told prior to the innings, e.g. just stick in and play safe, maybe.
He's been picked because this is what he's been doing in first-class cricket, and has, along with Rory Burns, been the most consistent opener in county cricket.
I mean,
it's
Fred
not
will
surprise.
know, growing up, sort of similar ages, watching Test cricket, this is what we used to see, isn't it?
Last ball of Wagner's
old-fashioned Test cricket, TM.
Last ball of Wagner's over, full delivery, swinging into the pads. Sibley blocks to mid-on. There is no run. End of the over. England 23 for none. A fairly unthreatening maiden.
And it's not just looking back for the sake of looking back, Nestlers. I mean, the reason that people have tried to have openers who see off the ball and hang around and don't necessarily score a lot of runs in a quick fashion is because it works. As tactics go, it's one of the more sensible tactics.
Especially in England, where the ball moves around a lot for a long time. It's a little bit different in situations where, let's say if the pitch is going to deteriorate, you might want a more aggressive top order because to cash in on the fact that it might be easier to score runs then. That's not really the case in England.
It's not Hales and Roy, both of whom have been tried as Test openers and have shown a significant lack of success.
Matt Henry starting his 7th over, so he is going to be the designated workhorse. Well, I say it was 2 workhorses along with Wagner, angling across Burns, blocks to backward point. There is no run. What Burns and Sibley are doing is trying to get Miles into the bowler's legs, wear them down, and be there when it gets a bit easier. Now you can argue about whether you might
or also protect your cash-in batsmen for later in the day.
Indeed, when they can face tired bowlers. As Henry in full delivery, driven nicely by Rory Burns. He is a fairly decent timer of the ball through mid-wicket. The outfield is not especially quick, so Wagner will be able to haul that down with 10 yards of green sward still in front of him. They come through 4-2. It wasn't brilliantly timed by Burns, but another place that might have raced away. I suppose what you can say is that Edgbaston, unlike say the Oval, doesn't have loads of practice wickets stretching the entire width of the square. So, like, there are some places at the Oval, like Jason Roy does this very well in one-day cricket. You bounce the ball into one of the cut strips and it goes flying over the head of the fielder at point, and there's nothing they can do about it. As Henry is in, facing up to Burns into double figures. Now that's a very good delivery, a full delivery, threatened to swing in but just held its line, beat Rory Burns' drive and full enough to get him driving. That's a genuinely very good delivery by Matt Henry, but a play and miss, and there is no run.
I think it did more than hold its line. I think it actually moved away from the batsman.
Yeah, it did off the seam. Held with a sort of scrambled seam. Again, a little bit of natural variation. He's been swinging the ball into the left-hander. And then that little bit of a change up to get the ball to go across, or maybe just hold its line. But that did jag off the seam. This is an easier delivery for Burns to defend. Short of length, defended again with very soft hands and bounces up into his elbow, which has cost him his wicket at one point this season, as you will know if you follow the county championship on Twitter.
Colin says it's been a long time since the Hayden Gilchrist opener types, and Stan Williams says all I want from an opener is to face 200 balls at a strike rate of 140 and not out to leave.
Gilchrist batted at 7.
Yeah, Gilchrist didn't open in Test cricket. He was a one-day international opener. As Henry is in back of the length and clipped to mid-wicket, there is no run. Pitches have also got more bowler-friendly in the last few years. You know, if you think in most places that's true, and you can see it in the averages around the world, and there are a lot of very good bowlers around now. You know, Matthew Hayden and Virender Sehwag, the two great attacking openers of the mid-2000s, you know, very fine players, possibly an all-time great in Virender Sehwag's case, but they were generally playing on pitches where it was a little bit easier to score quickly. Through to the keeper, there is no run as Henry comes in, a little bit of swing all after it past the bat, taken by the diving Tom Blundell. There is no run. 2 runs off the over from Matt Henry. He bowled 7 overs, 3 maidens, none for 12. After the first hour of the morning, England, having won the toss and elected to bat, are trying to set themselves up for later. They are 25 for no loss. We'll make way now, us 3 or 2 of us will. Fred will take over ball by ball. Bear will be summarising, and Hendo is on socials.
Well, good morning, Hendo.
Sorry, just quickly, next tweet is Matt Hardy.
Okay, thank you for that.
Tweet me, Hardy. As Admiral Nelson may have said, had Twitter existed way back when. So the first hour of play, England having won the toss, have looked, Hendo, pretty comfortable.
Yeah, reasonably so. Absolutely. It's been a sort of ordinary first hour of Test cricket, really. I mean, if you go back into the annals of time, England haven't lost a wicket, and that's what they would aim to do in that first hour. And New Zealand haven't, they've got the odd ball to move, but they haven't looked threatening, have they? And then, of course, you have to go back and ask yourself, would they have looked more threatening with Tim Southey and Kyle Jamieson? They might well have done.
They might well have done.
The question is, I was discussing this with Knackle and Nestlers earlier. 3 people have been rested. 3 people are out with injuries. I'm wondering whether, well, obviously the ones who have been rested would have played had this game been the World Test final. We don't know whether the injuries to Williamson and Watling and Santner would have kept them out of a game starting today if it had been the World Test Championship. So they've certainly rested 3. They may have erred on the side of caution with the injury. I don't know. I don't know exactly how bad. It's possible that Watling wouldn't have been able to play, either way, or Williamson. But it's possible that they've rested 6 people for this game, and it's fine. I understand why they've done it. It makes sense. They're prioritising the game against India in the World Test Championship final, but it's a little bit of a it's not great for Test cricket if you are resting 3 people and possibly resting a couple of others, is it?
I think it's a lot of people to rest, put it that way. I mean, you could argue that we are almost playing a New Zealand B team here, or an A team as they're known now. It's a tricky one, and also I don't know whether there was any comment about it, but certainly the TV cameras picked out 1 or 2 of those who are alleged to be injured, seemingly going off to the nets. Walking around the perimeter of the field. So, okay, you may say they were all right for a 20-minute net. They maybe not be able to last the rigours of a Test match. I mean, you could argue that certainly, but it doesn't look good, does it?
I saw a case in the paper the other day of an industrial tribunal of a guy who called in too sick to work and was found in the pub, and he won his case. He said he could have been too ill to work, but yet go to the pub. So maybe they couldn't have sat through the rigours of a 5-day Test match.
Yeah.
But can still, practice for half an hour or an hour.
Exactly.
They're not
exactly.
exclusive.
No.
Anyway, the first over of the second hour of the second Test will be bowled by Wagner, and he's into the fridge himself, Sibley. It's a ball which is swinging into him, but started from well outside the off stump, and Sibley gets the bat on it, but the bat was a long way away from his legs there, and away from his pads. Which will be slightly encouraging to the bowler, I think.
Well, yeah, the ball hasn't done that much, has it, this morning, really? There's less swing than there was, certainly at Lord's, I would say.
What I want to know is what kind of job are you too ill to do that you can't do that you can go to the pub for?
I think that's what the employers thought. As, again, well wide of the off stump, so this one doesn't swing back, and it's into the hands of the substitute wicketkeeper. He is the wicketkeeper.
There's an argument that if you've got a broken leg and you couldn't walk around the office, but someone could drive you to the pub, and medicinal as well, presumably.
Painkillers.
Hendo, who's taking up a career as an industrial tribunal lawyer, has
spoken.
I
put the merits
have.
of the case.
Absolutely.
And he will join the injured party in the pub after the verdict has come through. 25 for no wicket. We are in the something over, it's just gone off the screen, and Wagner is bowling to Sibley. There's a bit of a pause in play, I'm not sure why, as we see a drone view of the ground. Wagner in, left arm over the wicket. And Sibley watches this carefully, but doesn't play it outside the off stump. Good morning, Bear.
Good morning, Fred.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I'm quite enjoying this. I think England, as you've rightly said, I think they made a good start. I think all this talk about slow openers is bollocks, personally. I want my openers to stay there and do exactly that. Wear down a new bowlers, make sure the ball gets to at least 30 overs old, so that my players who come in behind have got slightly tired bowlers and a slightly wearing ball to bat to. I just don't have a problem. It's a 5-day game, for crying out loud.
And Wagner seems to be bowling dry as well, because he's pushed that well wide of the off stump, and Sibley doesn't have to play at it. We shall be having some of your tweets and social media messages shortly.
Well, we're a long way behind, I have to say. Matt Hardy says well, I know, but I need to sneak some in because we're 19 minutes behind.
Okay, sneak them in.
All right, after this ball.
We'll make more time for you, Hendo, as
Thank you.
Wagner bowling to 3 slips in the gully, and more importantly bowling to the batsman, who is Sibley, who just prods this into the offside, and it's a dot ball. Hendo.
Yeah, Matt Hardy says, evening. Just got in from a whiskey tasting evening in Christchurch. The struggle is real. Look forward to listening to the whole test. Just need to be able to stay awake. That's marvellous. That's a marvellous effort down there in Christchurch. Light Roller says, incredible 162 wickets for Jimmy. 162 tests for Jimmy, sorry. Started well for him too with his feet up. Kiwis need wickets. He says, is it even worth watching this test, says Ravi Nair. New Zealand clearly aren't taking it seriously.
There's a point to that. Thank you, Ravi. As the last ball is defended into the offside, get to some more tweets, Ender.
Yeah, Josie Oak is in. Oh, he's in England. He says, "Good morning from the HMP Aurora International Hotel, Crawley, Gatwick." That must be absolutely marvellous airport hotel. Paul Wandering Asia. I don't know what that's in reference to, so I'm going to have to pass over that one. But thank you for getting in touch. Harriet Atkinson says, "My first class cricket career was short-lived. I was 8 years old, and with the pads up to my neck, I stood there, never even saw the ball. Out. Oh well, better find my you Muppet t-shirt." Mog says, "Isn't Leeds kind of even bigger than New Zealand?" Well, I think it's got a few more sheep. I spent 3 years there, so yep, it is probably as big as New Zealand.
You spent 2 years in Leeds worrying sheep. Is that what you're telling us?
Worrying about sheep worrying, yes, absolutely. I've got to change of bowling, by the way, so I better break off for the time being and allow the bear to jingle him up.
Son of an old black funny and peep show wrote that book. Oh, Daryl, not David Mitchell.
The man with a test bowling average of 110 is up to the wicket now and bowls a swinging delivery, which his average has gone up because this has been turned behind square on the leg side and they're going to come back for 2. He now averages 112 in test cricket with the ball, which is not great.
No.
Well, I mean, that happens when you've only got one test wicket, doesn't it? So he's only gone for 112 runs. You could look at it that way.
Tell that to Alistair Cook, Sir Alistair Cook. I think you'll find who has a test average of 9 or something, or 14.
He's not been getting any runs for Essex this year, has he? Really?
What, Cookie?
Yeah, I think he's finished.
Essex have been struggling. Well, he's been written off before.
True.
As Mitchell is in. He's a right-handed bowler. He's bowling to the left-handed Burns. It's his on-leg stump and played back down the wicket. Mitchell looks like a New Zealander, really. He's quite tall. He's balding, which he's accentuated by shaving off what little remains. And he's got a beard. He could be one of any number of New Zealanders from looks over the years. Possibly if you put his picture up and asked, in a quiz, name that New Zealand cricketer, you might get 15 names come back at you as guesses. But let's see what he can do now as he's into Burns, very full, Yorker length, and just drops the bat on it to does Burns, and it goes to point no run.
Now, a little bit similar to Andre Adams, perhaps, in terms of looks. I remember Andre Adams.
If I could differentiate all these people, I would be able to help you, but I can't.
Yeah. You don't remember Andre Adams?
I remember the name, but if you asked me to pick him out of a lineup, I might struggle.
Well, he looks a bit like Daryl Mitchell.
Yeah, well,
Grant Elliott looks a bit like that as well.
yeah, he did. But he was a Safa, wasn't he?
He was. He did play for New Zealand. Number 75 on his back, Mitchell, and he bowls a floaty delivery on middle and leg, which Burns plays to short mid-wicket, 79 miles an hour.
Yeah, floaty with not a very long run-up, so it doesn't really give you much time to get tweets in, does it? I'm going to have to go race through them at the end of this over, so to give me plenty of space.
Now,
I shall truncate the commentary.
Don't the Kiwis have a couple of very quick bowlers, and I can't remember what their names are, that have been
Shane
in
Bond?
No, new ones, not old ones.
Oh, Lockie Ferguson, probably.
Yeah, Lockie Ferguson. There was another one as well.
Ferguson's playing in the Blast, isn't he?
Mitchell bowls and Burns defends. Tweet.
Yes, Jay Grover says, I'd have thought New Zealand depth were a wee bit better than England's. Then again, I thought Mohammed Sami were good for a while. And Nisa Rao says, what is the fun behind New Zealand hardly playing any cricket? Like, is it something to do with the board politics? How is it that they're still such a good team even though they hardly play? Well, I think obviously they're very keen when they do play. And they've got a very good system in operation. They've cut down on selections in a sense to a much smaller group of players.
As Mitchell's in again, and that does go past the outside edge. Burns did play inside it. And that is the end of the over. Hendo, catch up with the backlog.
Well, I will. I just wanted to sort of reply to Anis there and say there are any number of reasons that maybe it's to do with the fact that because they are underrated or have always been underrated, there's a greater sense of mateship, or there's more bonding, there's a more togetherness that New Zealand have got. I think that goes some of the way to explaining it. Roger McCann has been into... Rog, where are you? Come on, Guerilla Cricket. We need you. We need your voice. He says, surely England's worst tail, and he shows a game, England-Australia, which was won by Australia by 10 wickets. So now this is the tail. Chris Reed, I'll come back to it.
First ball of a new over from Wagner is driven sweetly square of the wicket on the offside, and we're going to get a rare boundary.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I say we're going to get a rare boundary. It's actually Sibley who's going to get a rare boundary. What does Rog have to say?
Well, as I said, he was talking about this tail. I'm not sure what year this is. I'm trying to think back. It's probably about 2006, something like that. Chris Reed, I think that's harsh because Chris Reed was a decent batsman. Maybe not at test level, but he was a decent county batsman.
As Wagner's in again, and well outside the off stump left.
But I think it's fair enough to say that the 8 to 11 didn't pull up any trees. Sajid Mahmood, who on this occasion, this particular scorecard that he provides, was caught Hayden bowled Lee first ball. Steve Harmison, LBW to Stuart Clark for 2. Monty Panesar, LBW bowled Warne for none, and James Anderson not out naught. So that was a pretty poor.
Yeah, that's basically 4 number 11s.
Yeah, it's pretty much, yes.
I don't remember much of Sajid Mahmood's batting.
No.
Wagner's in again, and full of ball, angling in towards off, and Sibley defends. But yeah, that is pretty poor. I mean, the one people talk about from a long time ago, at the beginning of the 90s, of Tufnell, Mullally, Giddins, and Caddick. I think they only played 1 or possibly 2 tests together. That was poor, but you want your number 8 to at least. You don't expect them to score a lot of runs, but you do want them to A, stay there, and B, have a chance of getting a 60 or a 70. Is Mark Wood going to get a test match 60 or 70?
He's got a test match 50.
Maybe in a slogathon, yes. But
well, not really. He's got some shots as Mark Wood.
Wagner bowls again, and Sibley blocks down the wicket. He's not a test number 8. He's not even a test number 9.
Oh, he's definitely not a test number 8, but he's a useful number 10 and an outside of number 9.
Yeah.
The Jay Grover comes back and says, there's many things I don't understand, but the weird treatment of Wokes confuses me. I agree to a certain extent. I mean, I know they're talking about players who've been in the bubble and whatever, but I think he would have loved playing at Lord's where he does well, and he would have loved playing in front of his home crowd in Birmingham. Yeah.
Wagner in again, and it's a wide ball. Sibley has to reach a long way for it, but having reached it, he's timed it sweetly through extra cover, and he's going to pick up another boundary.
1, 2, 3, 4.
That was a long way away from him. He's a tall man, and he had to use all his inches to reach that ball. But as I say, having done so, he timed it.
Yeah, I'm going to come back on this why New Zealand don't play cricket. Tyron Shoda on YouTube comes back. I just listened to you talk about why New Zealand doesn't play much cricket. Size of money made. You make more money in broadcasting rights and much bigger appeal playing India, Australia or South Africa. I read an article a couple of years ago, and basically that was the thing. They don't make any money out of Test cricket, so they came up with a solution.
But I mean, part of the question was how can they be so good at it?
As Wagner's in again, and this time Sibley leaves outside the off stump. Yeah, the other point about, I mean, they are the #1 team in the world, but it is fair to point out that this World Test Championship was very truncated, and a lot of series which were going to be played weren't played because of the pandemic. This is nobody's fault, it's just the way it worked out. And when it stopped, they happened to be the top of the rankings. They may not have been quite so high in the rankings had the full tournament played out, but we're never to know that. I'm not taking that away from them.
And a lot of their tests were played at home as well, weren't they? And they won all their home tests.
Yeah, but I mean, they're a good side. I mean, they've got good cricketers. I mean, what is the surprise is they have got such good cricketers from such a small
pool
group, really. Yeah, pool to pick from. Matt Howells comes back after this ball because we've missed another break in and over.
Mitchell bowls well wide the off stump. Hendo.
Matt Howells comes back on the England tails. He said this was pretty bad. Ronnie Irani, Andy Caddick, Alan Mullally, Phil Tufnell, Ed Giddins, which is pretty much the one that you were saying, Fred. Warren says, I'm liking the start very much. And Armchair Cricket Podcast reckons that after a wayward start, New Zealand's fast men have slipped into good lines and lengths. Looks like a waiting game for both sides. Would England happy to play out time till lunch? Pretty much.
Mitchell in again. Down the leg side this time. A good tumbling stop by... Who is the keeper? Is it Blundell?
Yep.
Blundell, yeah.
I'm saying like Tony here, not knowing who the keeper
is. Who is that wicket keeper? David Latimer says, do you think they are using Bolt and Henry to give their top 4 bowlers basically selection trials on England's soil and see which 3 handle the conditions best before the final? Love the commentary, fellas, by the way. Thanks very much. I think you're going to pick Bolt, Wagner, Jameson and Southey, aren't you? Whatever.
Well, it depends on so. As Mitchell's in again, and this is turned off Midland leg stump, square on the leg side by Burns. He's timed this well. The man's coming around from long leg. Don't think yes, is he? Isn't he? He does cut it off. Wagner, he swings it back, and Patel is 10 yards behind him. He does the clearing up, so 3 runs, I believe.
Well, they will have that problem Burns. About whether they want to play a spinner, and if they do, they will presumably have to drop one of those 4 to make way for the spinner. Colin de Grandon will be the 4th bowler, the 4th seamer.
Well, I don't know. I mean, wouldn't you leave Colin de Grandon out? I mean, I think Wagner's good enough as a batsman to bat at 8, really, these days. He looks very solid.
Oh, they do bat deep because Jameson as well is...
Jameson is...
Yeah, so Wagner would probably be at 8 anyway, or you could move Jameson up to 7. I think you've got to play those 4 pacemen there. They're brilliant.
Well, then de Grandon gets dropped if they want a spinner, and Ajaz Patel comes in.
The generic New Zealand looking fellow will be bowling. And
generic Kiwi.
Midlands fridge. See if we can work out who I'm talking about. He's up to the wicket and bowls, and a gentle swinger outside the off stump. He simply has nothing to do with it.
Well, going back to the article about why New Zealand play only, so when they have a home series, they basically figured out, because obviously rugby is the bigger sport and cricket is not very high on the pecking order, they figured out that the best way to get the best money out of it was to basically they play 3 tests, a whole load of T20s and a whole load of ODIs. So they play test cricket, but they kind of relegate it because they have to play it. And I guess they get to play when everything goes back to normal. They get to play plenty of test cricket abroad.
Full and swingy, and Sibley drops the bat on it. Yeah, but is it the case? I may be misremembering this, but they didn't play a lot of away series that qualified for the World Test Championship.
No, that was the thing.
So they were slightly helped by the schedule, again, due to the pandemic, nothing that anybody can do anything about. So that has worked in their favour.
I think
I think anybody who played most of their series at home would do better than teams who are constantly abroad, because teams don't win away series very often. But, they're a good team, there's no question about it, and they deserve to be there because they top the table. Mitchell bowls a gentle outswinger, which Sibley leaves the end of the over. Hendo, let's have some more tweets. 38 for no wicket.
Josie Oak says, I've not been able to go into work because I've been down the pub. Warren says, going to the pub instead of work is the definition of bad optics. What else have we got? Leah says, oh, no, well, I'm not sure what that's all about. Mog says something that is a discussion between two other people. The worm turns, says Messi Jez. I seem to recall England resting players in the past for preparing for something more important. The Ireland test springs to mind, of course.
And I had a go at them.
Yeah, you did.
How important for the little upstart colonies to reverse the trend,
Yeah.
he says.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm talking about, as Test cricket, as I think we're all agreed, there's a moment of unity of all the people who are on mic at the moment, that Test cricket is the pinnacle of the game, and it's a little bit disappointing to see it treated in cavalier fashion, whoever does it. So Wagner's going to start a new over to Burns, and he gets an outside edge. Tried to play this on the leg side, and the swing of Wagner took it away towards the slips, but along the ground, and he's going to get 4 runs through.
Yeah, he is.
Third man, despite a despairing dive. Who is it? He's pulled up his shoulder. It's Latham. He's holding his shoulder as he made a dive over the sponge and possibly into the advertising hoarding. He's getting up gingerly, but he seems to be okay. 4 runs to England.
There's not one more for me. I must have 2 or 3. I need 4.
Well, New Zealand weren't top of the table. India were actually top of the table. They were second.
Oh,
yeah. New Zealand played. They won 7, lost 4 games. They only actually played 12 matches. India played 16. England played the most. We played 18.
271.
No. Sorry. India played 17. England played 21 games.
Yeah.
21 tests even.
As Wagner's in again. And this is driven nicely square on the offside by Burns. Again, he hasn't quite timed it. And Patel is going to pull that in about 10 yards short of the boundary. And Burns is going to pick up 2 runs. 3 runs. 22 to him, 45 for no wicket.
Leah says, so no wicket has fallen yet and the run rate is below 2. I feel insufficiently entertained. Kiwi Craig says, even Boycott would tell them to get a hurry on. Edchek is with us. He says, how do you think England's tailenders would do if batting against the demon bowlers of the Guerilla 11? Would the Bear back himself to get out Jimmy? I don't think he'd get Jimmy. I think Jimmy would reverse sweep him into the evening. Yeah,
I never liked bowling to lefties.
If you had a good slip Bear, you might catch it. You might get him.
I never liked bowling to lefties.
Who would that be?
Whoever.
Jonathan Westbrook says it's been a hard watch. It has been a bit of a hard watch.
It's not been a hard watch.
It's the fucking first morning, for crying out. I've only been out there for an hour and 20 minutes.
You just can't please some people.
I know.
As Wagner's in again. Shorter ball outside the off stump. Sibley ducked, but it was nowhere near his head.
Poor J. Grover, he says, whenever Colin de Grandhomme is dropped, angels cry. And I think that's probably true, especially with that new hairstyle. We put out a little tweet earlier which has just made me laugh. It says, stop press. Dom Sibley is driven for 4 through the offside on purpose, twice. It's true. He has.
Yes, he has. He is on 19. Burns has 22. 45 from no wicket. England having won the toss in the first morning of the second test at Edgbaston. The next ball is a more familiar line of length from Wagner. It's a short ball aimed at the armpit. It's dropped into the leg side, but he doesn't have his leg theory field, so they do pick up a single. 46 for none.
And of course, Sibley is now playing at what is his home ground, isn't he? Because he moved from Surrey to Warwickshire. So maybe he feels more comfortable here than he does on the slope at Lord's.
He'll probably go back to Surrey when he's about 36, 37. But,
and Ricky Clark will still be there. Players always end up back at Surrey, don't they?
Well, they're like the AC Milan of cricket. When you think a player's career's over, they've still got 4 more years for them at Milan. As Wagner, maybe they also do blood doping. Wagner comes in and bowls, and Burns leaves. He thought about playing it and then withdrew his bat outside the off stump. 46 for none.
During my time of watching a lot of county cricket when I was a lot younger, I always remember that basically anyone who failed, there wasn't a lot of movement between counties. There was very little, in fact. But if you had failed at one county, you normally ended up at Glamorgan the following season. That's not to say that Glamorgan are not a good side now, but at that point they weren't probably the strongest county.
Well,
a bit like Northampton.
Wagner comes in and bowls, and it's left outside the off stump. I remember them finishing possibly second and in the race for the championship in the early 90s. They did have
I'm sorry. I'm going a lot further back than that.
You're going to the 70s.
I'm going to the 70s. Yeah.
Okay, end of the over. 46 for none. Henry, are we still backlogged?
A little bit. A lot of zinc on Latham. Does he not know that this is Birmingham, says Warren. Ravi Nair says, why is the Bear the only voice of reason today? Because the Bear's actually being serious. We are being slightly tongue-in-cheek, Ravi. Come on. I mean, yeah, obviously we want strong openers. My worry about Sibley is not so much what he did on Sunday, because I think he was told to do that. My worry is that, yes, you want someone to stay there. I'm not 100% convinced that he stays there enough and does that job that he's supposed to do enough. But he's doing a reasonable job this morning.
Mitchell starts in new over, very full ball, and it's bumped it into the leg side by Sibley, and he takes a quick single, which will please some people who
that was ugly
earlier that he doesn't do enough of that. Yeah, he had a poor tour of the Dust Bowls of Asia, that's fair to say. And it's a point I've noted previously, is that test teams are quite happy to pick bowlers dependent on conditions, but they seem to suggest that no, our batting lineup is our batting lineup. You're either in it or you're out of it, and they don't pick batsmen for conditions, but they're happy to pick bowlers for conditions. It's a bit of a strange anomaly, perhaps. Bowlers will think that's because bowlers tend to be less valued in the game of cricket. Perhaps they're right. But there's no reason about playing a guy at number 4 who's a good English player, and then picking a guy at number 4 who's a good player on spinning pitches, as Mitchell bowls to Burns a shorter ball, which he drops it to the offside.
Wasn't that the theory with Dan Lawrence? And and
we don't know who's going to be great on ragging.
Well, that's the point.
We don't see a lot of ragging.
Exactly, and especially the turners that were ragged as much as they did in India, particularly. I mean, I think it's very difficult to get experience on that kind of track. So you take out, presumably everyone backs themselves, and then they get out there and they flip out. Interestingly, I was watching Root the other day in an interview after this.
Mitchell bowls, and this is clipped into down to long leg by Burns for single. There.
When he was saying that he wasn't upset in the ways he got out in India, because he said he basically he accepted there were ways he was going to get out because of the nature of the pitches. And he was being upset with certain ways out, but the ones that went straight on when he was expecting it to turn because of the way he plays and going deep in his crease, he wasn't going to let that get into his head. Now I wonder if the other batsmen did let everything get into their head and go,
they probably did because they were a lot less experienced than Root,
As Mitchell bowls again, and this is flipped to backward square leg, no run. I love it when batsmen say I'm not going to let it get into my head, because it almost invariably means it already has got into their head.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, you make preparations and you have plans for how you're going to play in certain circumstances, and you accept that there are risks and rewards, and you're hoping that the rewards outnumber the risks. But it's going to weaken one part of your game, but that's the way you've decided to play, which is a sensible attitude. As Mitchell is in again to Sibley, a short ball. It actually rises quite well, and Sibley sways away from it. It was only 77 miles an hour, but it was taken high above his head by Blundell.
Yeah, I think that was just pure surprise on behalf of Sibley. He just wasn't expecting Mitchell at his pace to bowl him a bouncer, so he was actually less ready for it than he might have been against someone quicker.
And also the point about that India series was that 2 of the games were decided basically by 2 innings. Everyone fucked up apart from Rohit Sharma got his 150 in that game that was a complete shit show and over in 2 days. No one else got runs. So
leg stump from Mitchell, not where he wants to bowl, and it's turned out to the square leg boundary at 4 runs to Sibley.
It's Nissan She. It's Nissan She.
England's 50's up, 52 for no wicket. I would imagine that's probably in the top 15% of historical England opening partnerships.
Yeah, and I suppose if we want to be positive, you've got to say that's 250 partnerships in a row.
Yes.
From these two.
Against a decent team.
Ravi Nair says, Michael Carberry, Nick Compton, these are the best I can remember over the last 10 to 12 years. Cook aside, have we had better openers in the last 8 years? We've had people look to have a certain amount of promise. Adam Lyth is one, I would have thought.
There was talk of him at the beginning of this season getting a comeback, wasn't there?
Well, he had a fantastic start to the county season. He was scoring hundreds and 50s everywhere, but it hasn't really sort of continued, unfortunately. Change of bowling, we're going to see a bit of spin. Bear, jingle him up.
Finally, this man.
Like the severed head, it reanimates. He'll try to do you between your legs. Yeah, that's just what Edgbaston will do.
Well, I'm going to profess ignorance of Ajaz Patel. I don't think I've seen him play. Did he play in the winter?
No.
Those test matches? I don't.
Oh,
think
what,
he
the
did.
ones that they played against Pakistan and West Indies?
Yes.
Yes, I think he did. He did
Right.
play in one of those games, yeah.
Well,
I don't think
but it hasn't stuck in the memory. So, yes, I haven't done my homework. Hendon doesn't play me enough. 52 for no wicket England. He's a slow left arm bowler. This is his 9th Test match, and he'll be bowling to Rory Burns, who's a left-handed batsman. Probably not ideal. Well, let's see if there's any turn in this wicket. As his first ball, maybe gentle turn from outside the off-stump, turn into the ground and then into the midriff of the short leg fielder. He's got a slip of the short leg. He's got a short extra cover, a mid off a backward point about 10 yards in from the boundary, and that's as far as the TV pictures show us. As Patel's in again, and this is again turned into the ground, again into the hands of the short leg. What do we know about Mr. Patel? Bear, you're the summarising expert.
Well, I've seen 2 balls. He looks all right. What do you want me to say?
The Bear has given him his,
You're listening to the new
seal of
England
approval.
As Patel bowls. No sign of any turn yet, as this is a quicker ball, straight ball, and defended back down the wicket.
Decent flight, decent line.
Well, he's 32. I mean, he's been around. He should be coming into his peak years as a spinner, really. Had a good record at first-class level.
Very short run up, just a pace or two as he bowls the middle and leg. It's turned into the leg side by Burns, but to a fielder.
There are a lot of
economical. He's got a decent action from what I can see. Looks fluid and no unusual moving parts. Sorry, Hendo, he's in again, and again blocked into the ground by Burns.
It's got a very economical run up in the sense that he hasn't really got one. It just seems to be like a step, and then he bowls. Maybe a couple of steps if you're lucky.
He's very good for getting your over rate up.
Yes.
He bowls full of ball, and Burns defends. So Patel's first over in England is a maiden.
Good
and we're going to have a change around now.
We should do indeed.
I shall be leaving you. 3-person change. Tony, Nestlers, and Knackle are coming in.
Indeed. We shall see you shortly. Take over, you two, while Knackle sits in the chair.
We will. Thank you very much, Fred. Thank you very much, Bear. Thank you very much, Hendo. And hello to Nestlers. Hello, Nestlers. He was on mute, so he's just waving, which doesn't make ideal radio, but we'll press on anyway. Well, yes, good start for Ajaz Patel. Kicks off with a maiden. Only 5'6". I can tell you that. Didn't have the best of seasons really towards the end of the New Zealand domestic season. Bowling figures 1 for 114, 1 for 67 for Central Districts against Canterbury and Wellington.
He had an injury that was, I'm not sure if that was leading into or coming out of the injury, but he missed a fair chunk of cricket with an injury, which is why he ended up losing his Central contract. But
He
in the
did indeed.
seasons before that, he was excellent, and he has won New Zealand. He won New Zealand a Test match in the UAE. They beat Pakistan in the UAE.
He did. That was his debut. Took 5 for 59.
They won that series, which almost nobody beats Pakistan in the UAE. Have a change of bowling at the other end. I think Trent Bolt has switched ends.
It is indeed Trent Bolt who is going to take up the attack.
Yep. Now
wicketless for him, of course. England have moved on to 52. Dom Sibley positively skipping along on 25 not out from the 55 balls he's faced. There are 2 slips. Bolt is in left arm, and it is taken down at ankle height by wicketkeeper Tom Blundell. Last minute call up for the now with the sore back BJ Watling.
Yeah, I think he is definitely, probably they might have risked Kane Williamson for World Test Championship final. I think Watling was meant to play, but sore back on the morning of a Test match as a wicketkeeper is not the kind of thing you want to mess around with.
No, Hendo was a little bit sceptical, I heard, at one point, as a few of them bounced happily off to nets who were supposed to be injured. In comes Bolt, over the wicket, ducked under by Dom Sibley, and once again through to Blundell it goes. Solid start this by England, I think, Knackle.
Oh, very much so. Probably they've missed out on a few singles, but Sibley started to open up a little bit through the offside. Burns has played a couple of nice square drives. The pitch looks decent. I think there's more pace and carry in it than there was at Lord's. The outfield does look a bit slow. Maybe it'll quicken up as when it gets a bit sunnier. I should jingle up Trent Bolt, and I'll do it after this ball.
Well, he is. He's going to be in to Sibley, who just leans forward, drives him to mid-off, and there is no run. 52 without loss still. Burns on 23. He's looked solid, untroubled. Sibley on 25. He's actually going ahead of his partner Burns. If you've been listening to us from the start of the day, you will have heard no small amount of conversation. Poor old Dom Sibley was getting it in the neck, frankly, even down to the fact he had some of his breakfast down the front of his jumper, we thought. But nonetheless, in comes Bolt. Worked beautifully off his legs by Sibley, down to deep backward square, and he will get a single.
Here is that jingle for Trent Bolt, now switching to the Birmingham end.
How does he speak, or play the horn, or clean his teeth, or even yawn? How does he shout, how does he call? Trent Bolt's mouth is really small.
Got some swing into the right-hander and mostly away from the left-hander from the other end, the pavilion end. And bowled mostly to Burns in that opening spell. I mean, Rory Burns did sort of block out a lot of maidens in a row. Not especially threatening maidens, but still. So Sibley was able to do a little bit more of the scoring earlier, but he Burns then got that 4 and then the 3 off Neil Wagner. Which
let me see, they got 2 slips, a gully, point, cover, and a mid-off on that offside as Bolt comes in. 5th ball of this over from that Birmingham end. It swings a little but stays very low, and once again taken at ankle height. Doesn't seem to be a huge amount of life in the pitch, Nestlers.
Excuse me. Sorry, I've just.
It's funny
swallowed.
you mentioned that. I thought.
Oh Lord, what have you just swallowed? A fly?
Coffee.
Oh, coffee.
I think this pitch has more carry in it than the Lord's pitch did. We saw Daryl Mitchell, who's not quick, get the ball to genuinely bounce. From
Bolt in again and played down into the ground. 2-3 bounces to the 3rd of those slips, and there is no run. It's the end of the over. 53 without loss. England. Burns 23, Sibley 26, and we will, if poor Nestlers has recovered from coffee going down the wrong way. Let's hear who's with us.
Ravi Nair says Michael Carberry, Nick Compton are the best I can remember in the last 10 to 12 years. Cook aside, have we had better openers in the last 8 years? Well, probably not. David Latimer says I'm picking batsman Martin Guptill, probably one of our best ever short form batsmen, was crap at red ball cricket because he had an eye issue. Couldn't pick it up. Bloody shame.
Blimey, eye issue, a toes issue. He did pretty well considering those various impediments.
Yeah.
Harriet Atkinson says stay in Sibley, not get stuck in Sibley. No worries. Test cricket and Guerilla cricket, that'll do me.
Well, it's going to be Ajaz Patel again. 8 tests, 22 wickets at 33 for him so far. So he may not be a name best known to English followers, English viewers and listeners, but nonetheless he's not exactly a newbie. Let's see what he can do bowling from that pavilion end. He's around the wicket and on to the back foot goes Sibley and punches this away into the offside, but there is no run.
Yeah, he's got a very economical.
So still yet to concede a run.
Got a very economical action, a nice sort of whirl and loop to it. He is genuinely trying to turn the ball. He's getting a little bit of loop and dip.
This one is turned by Sibley away into the onside. There's no run. He became the 5th Indian origin cricketer played for New Zealand since Ted Babcock, Tom Booner, Ish Sodhi, and his best buddy from school was Jeet Raval. Forward comes Sibley, a little bit inside edgy that, and there is for Patel's bowling a man at forward short leg looking for that one that might just pop up, and Sibley was I think he pretty much had bat and pad together there, but he was really thrusting forward. Again, ball on a good length, a little bit of flight and dip from Patel, worked into the onside once more.
That was good.
No run.
I like that from Sibley. Sibley came down the track a little bit to try and defend that. I like that little bit of extra positivity, even if it is only in defence. It's the kind of thing that can work up an angle to get you a single, work a good ball for a single. Spinners hate that.
Slip and a forward short leg. That one turns away from the right-handed Sibley, but again he's looking to punch. You get the sense that he's looking to play that little bit more aggressively, but it's not quite coming off. I mean, that was another example. It was a very firm shot for a defensive shot. Patel in again, left this time though by Sibley. Blundell, of course, is standing up, takes it behind the stumps. There's no run. And we can go to Nestlers.
Mog says, please note that AJ's Patel jingle is the first in the series combining 80s cartoons with 80s gore comedy horror films. Ravinair says, exactly. Instead of the minute complainants, let's celebrate an almost competent opening partnership.
What do you mean almost competent? 53 for none just after the first hour of a test match against a good attack.
England very rarely get to 50-something with their opening partnership,
honest,
so
I'm not
I
even sure
would say
I'm not even sure
we're probably
that's
quite happy about this.
I'm not even sure that's true anymore. Burns and Sibley have done okay as an opening partnership for England.
O'Neill Harris says, good morning, Gorillas. Great commentary. The opener's job is to bat. As long as they are batting, they're doing their job very, very well. Correct?
Yeah, I think poor Sibley. I'll just hold the thought for a second as we wait for Trent Bolt to take up the attack again with 2 slips. Burns dabs it to backward point, and there is no run. I think poor Dom Sibley. The England decision was taken not really to chase, or never really looked like they were going to chase.
Why is it poor Dom Sibley?
Well, I'm feeling sorry for him because
a load of people on social media are moaning.
Well, it's not. It's not.
Well, I think he's carrying the can for a collective team decision.
Sky opened their show talking about England lack of intent and lack of effort.
Yeah, as this one swings, and Burns again just plays this away into the offside. Nichols does the fielding.
It's bloody Test cricket.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. I felt he seemed to personify England's lack of intent. Whereas I think it was a collective lack of intent rather than a personal Sibley lack of intent.
Yeah,
so he's getting grief on behalf of everybody, which he probably doesn't quite deserve. That's why I was saying poor Dom Sibley.
I will say, Sky. I'll come to that after this ball.
She was going to be bowled by Bolt, and Burns again, very solid forward push to mid-off, no run.
Yeah, good positive defensive stroke. Sky didn't blame individuals, as they quite rightly said that's what you pick Dom Sibley for. As I've said today and I've said before, that's what got him into the Test team. That's what he did in first-class cricket to get him into the Test team. If you're suddenly expecting him to play in a different way, you've not been paying attention, frankly.
I agree, and England are building a resilient side, I think would be the description. This is left to go over his shoulder by Burns. If you had a scale, and on one end of the scale you had Peterson, Viv Richards, Brendan McCullum, and at the other end of the scale you had Angus Fraser, I think Chris Silverwood is very much just the Fraser end of the scale in terms of conservatism and caution.
Have the England management team complained about Dom Sibley?
No.
Well, then screw it. It's just the media.
It's the media, and a lot of fans as well, I think, as this one is waiting for cut by Burns. He didn't leave himself, he played that really well because he didn't leave himself a lot of space to play that shot, but he guided it down to third man and he's got 4 for it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Played.
Yeah, I think the fact
27.
that you can trust the bounce on this pitch. We saw Sibley leave one on length earlier, and Roy Burns has waited for that, played it really late, played it under his eyes, and guided it past Gully really well. You can't do that I don't think you could have done that on that Lord's pitch, for example.
No, it's looking like a decent track to bat on. Burns does that head adjustments of his, and he slaps this one, and looking for the same shot. This time, though, it's taken by the man at Gully, who dives to his left. It's the end of that bolt over. England have moved on to 57. Burns is on 27, Sibley on 26. Nestlers.
I don't know how far we got on YouTube comments, but I'll give it a go. England haven't lost a wicket in the first hour of play. When was the last time that happened, says Andrew Cook?
Last Test match.
Hypothetically, he plays, hurts himself further and then misses the World Cup final. Imagine the stick he'd be getting, says Colin. I think probably talking about Williamson. Maybe. Tyson Schroeder said, just listen to you talk about why New Zealand doesn't play much cricket. Size of money made. You make more money in broadcasting rights.
We've had that one.
Bigger appeal playing India, Australia or South Africa.
We've had that one.
Patel's going to continue. 57 without loss. England yet to concede a run. He's bowling his third over. He's around the wicket, but he will concede a run now because that's been slapped by Sibley away to point, and they will scamper a fairly quick single and bring Burns back onto strike. Knuckle, we were going to say something there.
Well, we've had that one yet. New Zealand lose, I think it's $2 million a home game, New Zealand dollars per home Test match, so they only tend to play 2 Test match series at home. The ICC used to have a fund for enabling boards to basically to help boards with the costs of hosting home test matches. They're thinking about reintroducing it, and frankly it's long overdue and should never have been got rid of in the first place.
So Patel is waiting. I think there was a field adjustment there, but I can't quite see what is done. There is a slip and a forward short leg, and forward comes Burns. Patel, full of enthusiasm, is skipping across to field off his own bowling, but he ultimately doesn't need to. There is no run, and he does what I call the spin bowler's cough, warming up those fingers. I wouldn't have thought they needed too much warming up today. Down the track comes Burns, but he flicks this to mid-on. The throw comes in. I think that hit the stumps on the way through. Sibley, I think, was home, although they are going to have a look.
I don't think anyone's particularly bothered about it. Rory Burns looked like he was in. It was a good throw from Wagner, I think it was at mid-on.
It was Wagner.
But Burns set off very quickly. Sibley responded to the call. I think he's in. Richard Kettleborough gave it the look of, I might as well. It'll look really silly if I don't, and he's out.
We're watching
but he's past
now,
the stumps.
and in fact, he's probably most of the way to the Aston Villa football stadium, based on the fact he's almost past the stumps with his bat well and truly carving a trench in the pitch. And not surprisingly, I'm sure to the delight of the Eric Hollis hands, all of those who aren't New Zealanders, we just move on. It was not out. Slapped straight to cover on that occasion by Sibley. Looks a bit frustrated with himself. In fact, he's shaking his head a little bit.
It's as close to emotional as he ever gets.
So far for him.
There's a point I want to make about Dom Sibley playing off the back foot after this ball.
Which is, again, bowled with a bit of flight and wide of the stumps again. This time, Sibley's got it through. He's got it through cover. It's going to go all the way into the fence. A warm round of applause from a 3/4 full Edgbaston. It's 4 runs.
Now my innings going, great going.
So we've now seen Sibley. So that's the third attempt, or fourth perhaps, attempt to play an attacking stroke at the back foot in the last couple of overs. You talked about that hard defensive shot in the last over. It was meant to be a pull shot that he was too early on and had to sort of block it.
In comes Patel again. Down the track comes Sibley. Pushed straight to mid-on though, and this time there won't be a run. But no, he's shown good intent all the way through. That's the end of that Patel over. He does whistle through them, doesn't he? By goodness me, he does. 63 without loss, Nestlers.
Sorry, just to finish that point on the cut stroke. He was too early on one, closed the face on two, and ended up hitting them straight to fielders. He waited a bit longer for that one, timed it much better.
Joe Grover likes the Patel jingle, wants to play it again, and he missed it. And Mog's description sounds like it might be his thing. Ian Barker says, good morning from Kansas City. The lovely Tess appreciates the entertainment too.
Kansas City, here I come.
Are Sky even allowed to use the phrase intent in a cricket context? I thought Kohli and Shastri had that trademarked, says Leah. And did someone pop a Mento in Sibley's carbonated beverage just before he drank it, says Warren. Well, it's either that or he spilt his coffee all down his jumper this morning.
Well, no, I think what that is, in the second innings at Lords, he had to do a full-length dive to get himself in, and I genuinely just think he hasn't washed his jumper.
Well, that's pretty shabby, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, as this one bolt is in, and this one's horrible. It could be wide, I would think. Was that given as a wide?
If
not, it was certainly very close. It was swinging away from the left-hander and swung even further. Tom Latham, who of course is captain in the absence of Kane Williamson, he's giving it everything he can by getting some shine on that ball. Sibley, that jumper, I think you're right. He's left it since that dive he threw in to avoid being run out. Burns stands ready, bolt in. That was a better ball on the off stump of the left-hander. Pushed back down towards the bowler, and there is no run. We should do a shout out for the GPL. Remember, you can go to guerillacricket.com/competitions. You have until lunchtime, so you have another, what would it be?
12 minutes.
12 minutes. Every pound you bet, you could win the pot. The pot last time I heard was 20-something pounds. Somebody has just won £77, as this one is played off the back foot by Burns. So it's as simple as that. £1 a bet. You can put as many bets in as you like, and the pot gets bigger, and there is more there to be won.
We've had 8 entries so far, so it starts at £20 every time there's a winner. Mark Selleck won on the last day of the last test match. We've had 8 entries so far. Ombre Nuevo at 247, Messi Jez at 253, 263 and 273, Oscar Mack at 281, Messi Jez at 283. Break off.
Bolt should be coming in, but we seem to have frozen the picture, Knuckle.
It was all fine from my end. Bolt was in and Burns blocked it to point. No run. Feed's fine as far as I can tell. Tony, you've frozen. Which obviously he isn't very helpful because Tony can't hear me because he's frozen. I'll take over until Tony is back. So yeah, to continue that, Messi Jazz 283, Ombre Nuevo 287, and Oscar Mac 308. You have another 11 minutes to get your GPL guesses in.
Being told I have an unstable internet connection all of a sudden, so I lost that completely. I may be losing pick.
As Trent Bolt is in, and this is worked by Rory Burns to mid-wicket, and there is no run.
Wrong words from Stan Weasler. Says, when your first innings was at 2-2-3 for 9 on the way to 275 all out, not trying to score 273 in 2 sessions was cowardice of the highest order. Cowards they were.
I completely understand why people would have wanted England to go for it and make it a bit more entertaining, but I can also completely understand why they didn't. I'll just do this last ball as Tony comes back. It's a short ball hooked by Rory Burns down to Ajaz Patel at long leg. They come through for a single. Burns moves to 28, Sibley 231, England 64 for none. Hopefully we should have a fully operational Bishop.
We will at some point, but in lieu of that, Morgan.
You're
now,
on
Morgan,
mute, Tony.
if I pronounce your surname wrongly, I apologise. Hautfleisch says, good afternoon from Namibia. Just tuned in. How's the pitch playing? It's
okay.
Well, it's not doing anything spectacular at the moment. Joe Grover says, I've never played professional cricket, but I have shrunk several jumpers. Practical fear and occupational superstition are powerful things. Andrew Cook says, New Zealand might become more important to play test series against if we win the final. Might. Colin says, love it. Classic internet issues timing.
It was indeed.
Play that jingle, Knuckle, because Jay hasn't heard it.
In comes Patel, and forward comes Burns, just nudges it to the man at forward short leg, and there's no run.
Shall I play the Ajaz Patel jingle?
You can. You may have to do it quickly, though, because he gets, you don't have a lot of time between balls, because he's in again, and this one's wide of the off stump. Burns comes skipping after it and pushes it to wide mid-off and takes a single.
Yeah, if Ajaz Patel and Ravindra Jadeja are both playing in the World Test Championship final, the over rates will be good. I'll play the Ajaz Patel jingle at the end of the over because there just isn't time between deliveries.
Hang on, Jay, just hang on.
I think you may need to. 65 without loss. England, Burns on 30. Sibley ahead of Burns, I will say again, on 31 off 69. None for 7 so far for Ajaz Patel. Started off well, but he's leaked a few runs a little bit more recently as this one was left alone by Sibley. Through it goes to Tom Blundell, and again there's no run.
Blundell in classic, I haven't had the ball in my hands for a little while as a wicketkeeper, whipped the bails off for no reason at all.
Yeah, something like that. Sibley blinks and crouches and comes forward with great solidity, but not a huge amount of flair, but no flair really needed. We're in the first morning.
That was.
Yeah, it's a little
wicket keeping. It was wicket keeping.
It's
yes,
like
it was.
it's like when a goalkeeper, a through ball goes through to him and you fall on it for no reason at all just to get the ball.
Round the wicket comes Patel to the right-handed Sibley. He's alternating between over for the left-hander and round for the right-hander. This one pushed into the onside though, no run. 65 without loss.
Tennis players do it all the time.
Patel in again. Sibley's forward. Patel fields off his own bowling. And once again, in very rapid time indeed, we've reached the end of the over with England 65 without loss. Nestlers.
Oh, hang on, let's have that
jingle.
Ajaz Patel jingle.
Oh, yes.
Like the severed head in Reanimator, he'll try to do you between your legs. Yeah, that's just what Ajaz Patel will do.
There you go.
There it was. 65 without loss. Burns 30, Sibley 31. Nestlers.
Warren says the internet's collapsing around us. Is it the end of the world as we know it? We're all doomed.
Very good. I do. You had me worried though, given that that's literally what happened last time. For real.
I will say it's amazing how infrequently that happens, given how long we've been doing GC commentary via Zoom.
Yeah, it does seem to happen every. Did it happen to everyone or just me?
Just you.
Oh, okay. Because I do have a new server, but it's been as good as gold for the last 2 weeks. A new router. Bolt in again, full and swinging into the left-handed Burns, who tucks it away, but straight to square leg. And then plays the shot again, as if this time around with no ball there, it was going to whistle to the boundary. This is the first time, which really mattered. It did go straight to the fielder. 65 without loss, England.
Ravi,
Steady start.
Is no one going to talk about the monsoon, which has finally hit Bombay and made love to the Gulmahar flowers? And he sent a picture of the flowers.
Oh,
which
I'm
have
sure
been
they
made
were
love to.
extremely grateful. Swung, and this one Burns, I think, to give him the benefit of the doubt, tucked the bat inside. But there was a fleeting second when you felt he was having a little prod at that, and almost simultaneously with that thought, just pulled the bat away at the last minute. It was a good swinging delivery by Bolt. 7 minutes to go till lunch. The clock above that Edgbaston scoreboard tells us, with England 65 without loss. There's a fair little breeze blowing there as well, whipping across Edgbaston, and that one's on leg, and Burns was looking to turn it away to leg and skews it off the toe end of the bat, somehow away to point. But he gets away with it, and there is no run.
Burns had walked across the middle stump to try and work that very fine. It suddenly then swung away late. There was one earlier where it was a full-out swinger and Burns managed to middle it to mid-wicket. That one he had to adjust at the very last second and only just managed it. If he hadn't got that leading edge, that would have been absolutely stone dead LBW.
Yeah, he did. That wind is blowing across from the Priory stand towards the Hollis stand, I think, if I look at the geography of Edgbaston. 2 slips go down, Bolt in, Burns forward, dabs into the offside, and again there's no run. I always feel sorry for poor old Eric Hollis. 25 years he played for Warwickshire, 13 tests he played for England, 44 wickets I think he took, and people really, outside of Warwickshire, tend to remember him just for one thing, which has probably haunted him to the day he sadly left us. 25 years he was a Warwickshire servant, and thoroughly deserves that stand. In comes Bolt, forward comes Burns, and again it's just pushed away to mid-off. There's no run.
I think what Eric Hollis might be almost, well, not quite equally, but certainly almost known for is having his stand full of incredibly loud drunk people, because it's probably the most raucous stand in England in Test cricket, along with maybe the Western Terrace at Headingley.
And as if to prove the point, we're looking at the Knights of the Crusading Knights.
The Knights of the pub table.
Knights of the pub table, yes indeed. Bolt's going to be in again. 2, Burns, who again is rather squared up. That's very outside edgy, but it's evaded both point and gully, and they will be able to take 2. Good running. 67 without loss, England. Yeah, but 25-year career, including 44 wickets in Test matches. No small amount of runs, because he could bat as well. And yet we've named 2 things. He got Don Bradman out, and he has a stand that is full of drunk people in fancy dress.
What are you remembered for? What are you remembered for, Tony?
Well, it's a little bit like, I'll take another example, Malcolm Nash.
Very good point. He's got 2 things to be remembered more than me, perhaps.
I will say this, like Malcolm Nash. Malcolm Nash got, I think...
Oh, of course, yeah, what a great example.
Nearly 1,000 first-class wickets. Really very good county bowler, first-class bowler. He's known for 1 over. I also, I think it was Andrew Sampson, the statistician, was talking about this the other day. He conceded as many runs in that over to Sobers as he did in the rest of that bowling spell combined, which was 17 overs.
Was he not also rather experimenting with a new style of run-up or type of delivery?
He was a swing bowler, and he bowled off-spin in that over for fun.
You would have thought that, after the 4th 6, you might have thought it wasn't too much fun, and he might have wanted to rethink it as forward comes Sibley to Patel, who is continuing from that Birmingham end, and there is no run. 67 without loss.
Thankfully, Ben Stokes is not just remembered for that over he bowled to Brathwaite in the final of the T20.
Exactly. There's this one, back foot again, punched by Sibley into the covers, but there's a man there. It's our friend Henry Nichols, or Harvey as Gary likes to refer to him. I seem to remember the Lord's Test was petering away to such a sort of lack of interest that we ended up on a whole theme of conversation around players who sounded like supermarkets, didn't we? Or department stores. This one is pushed into the onside, and there is no run again.
Even as a pun run,
keeping it tight.
Even as a Guerilla Cricket pun run, it wasn't that interesting.
Well,
I think
we were scraping the barrel of
we might just be able to get one more
department
over
store
here.
desperation.
We might be able to get one more over here if Patel manages to whip through this quickly.
Well, indeed he does. That's very solidly met by Sibley. Away into the offside again. There's no run. Just 5'6", remember, is Patel. That he used to be a quick bowler, and I think he realised that even 5'6", whilst it's not an absolute requirement of a quick bowler to be tall, at 5'6", he thought he might get more out of the game if he switched to a slower form of bowling, and he hurries Sibley with one that shot through, and Sibley, who's shaking his head. Patel's got a bit of a wry smile on his face because I think he knew that one surprised Dom Sibley, and Sibley did well indeed to keep it out.
Genuine arm ball, rolled off the index finger, a little bit of with the seam canted, and it really did dip viciously in towards Sibley.
In comes Patel again, pushed away into the offside. Again, there's no run, and once more, in the blinking of an eye, Ajaz Patel has got through another over. If he keeps bowling, it is indeed lunchtime. It's 67 without loss. Burns on 32, Sibley on 31. So this morning, England have made 67. Remember, they won the toss. They have decided to bat. The pitch has looked good. England have moved along at a sufficient clip. What's importantly, they've kept all of their wickets in hand. So I think you could say it's advantage England this morning. Obviously a few interesting team changes on both sides. But it will definitely be England who are happier as we head towards lunch. We'll have some final messages. And then Knackle will tell us what we have lined up for your lunchtime entertainment. Nestlers.
Well, Jay Grover likes that jingle because it just says mint. Rabbi Nair, probably tweet of the day so far, says, damn, I forgot what I wanted to tweet. But then sends a little clip of the monsoon with when the rain hits your eye bouncing up not from the sky, that's monsoon. Peter Lloyd says, on the breeze, just had to close up some of my windows because of the breeze and clouds, making it a lot cooler 5 miles south of Edgbaston. Jay Grover says, on the other side of the coin, you could be Carlos Brathwaite. John Perry says, is Vinu Mankad another unfairly maligned cricketer? Brilliant all-rounder, remembered for a bit of gamesmanship that he only employed after warning the batsman a couple of times.
Very, very good example, yes.
Messi Jess says, my God, give New Zealand a medal. 29 overs bowled before lunch.
Yeah, that's the Patel effect.
And Des says, Malcolm Nash strangely hit for 5 sixes and a 4 in 1 over off Frank Hayes 9 years later. Well, there you go.
Poor old Frank Hayes, never quite got there. Anyway, we will head towards lunch, and to entertain you at lunchtime, Knackle, what do we have?
We've got a conversation. We were playing this a little bit in the latter stages of the Test match. We got slightly bored of playing the World Cup final, and we ended up playing all of it anyway. So we're going to go back to the start of your conversation, Tony, with two fine authors, one of whom has graced this show regularly, admittedly one first session at a time, and Ashley Gray, and in the Dutta and Ashley Gray. So have some book chat for the next half an hour.
Fantastic, and we will see you after the break.
Chairman Mao, Jamie Howe, Ho Chi Minh, Asif Din, Václav Havel, Graham Saville, No Surrender, Percy Fender, Guerilla Cricket.
Welcome to this Guerilla Cricket podcast. Now, in March 1706, a man called William Goldwyn published a slender volume of his early verse called Musée Juvenile. Inside was a poem that would lend him a very strange kind of immortality, 95 lines in Latin, which that were titled Incertamen Pile, on match at ball. Why should we care? Well, as far as anyone knows, it is the very first piece of cricket literature. Cricket has a genuine appeal around the world, and today is certainly the topic of conversation for my two guests who are joining me from Singapore and Sydney. Most importantly, they are both best-selling